Fantastic. Welcome, everybody. This is Manhattan Community Board 1. This is our executive committee. The meeting is called to order at 6:05. A couple of housekeeping notes, please, before we introduce our first speaker. We are going to bump the resolution to next month on the bylaws after we have some notification from the Manhattan Borough President on the written notification on the new public hearing guidelines. At the same time, we are also going to bump to next month the CB1 election preparations and process in terms of the voting in regards to the open meeting laws and every change that we have coming forward for March. So we're going to bump that off until then as well. We're going to redo the order of tonight. The other thing that has been postponed is the community district demographics update. And just to understand what that will be is that will be our lead in to the beginning of our zoning dialogue in relation to our district, large venue working group work product that was done last year as well. So all of those items are now moved to March. We were going to start tonight with our esteemed District Attorney, Alvin Bragg, and then move into the Borough-Based Jails DDC. Afterwards, we'll have a quick update from the team in the office and executive committee. So with those notes and knowing that time is precious, I welcome District Attorney Alvin Bragg to Manhattan Community Board 1. So we are delighted to have you here and congratulations. Thank you. I'm beginning to wonder if his audio is not connected.
No, you say that it does appear that his audio is not connected. Kevin, it looks like the DA's audio is not connected. If he's having trouble with his microphone, he can click. There's a arrow next to the microphone button that allows him to switch audio and then call in to use the phone, or to select the proper microphone from the computer.
Okay. Let him know now. I just sent the text so you can get it connected, but in the meantime, I know that time is of the essence as well. So if I may, I can start briefly speaking about a few things in the office that we're rolling out, and Alvin can pick it up once he gets the audio situation fixed up.
Lovely work, Kevin. Would you introduce yourself for the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So good evening, everyone. My name is Kevin Jean-Baptiste. I supervise our community engagement team at the Manhattan DA's office within the Community Partnerships Unit. Happy to be here, and we know that we're going to have Alvin situated in a second to join us. But the Community Partnerships Unit is the community-facing arm of the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, and our primary role and goal is to connect with the community. And so I just wanted to provide a few brief updates that we have, particularly programs that are dedicated to young people primarily, and Alvin can go into more details about policies, initiatives, and take questions from the community. So I'll start off by speaking about our high school internship program that I know is for young folks that for the summer. And how it works is we have two cohorts, cohort from July month where it's a virtual program where they're online for 4 weeks in July, and then the second cohort in August where we have young people, high school age folks that are essentially learning more about the justice system and the works of the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. They get to meet with assistant district attorneys and are paired with a mentor, whether it's a non-legal staff or a legal staff member. They have a mentor throughout the program to help them navigate and learn more about the justice system. So the application for that is on our website at manhattanda.org, and the deadline is to apply is March 5th. So I can make sure that the community board has the flyer for that. And we're also probably looking to extend the deadline as well if we do not, if there are people that need more time to apply. In conjunction with that, we're also doing a resume workshop where we know young people may not have their resumes already situated to apply to high school internship programs. And so we're doing a resume workshop next week, Friday, where we help young people. Again, it's a virtual workshop, and we look at different things that they can add on to their resume. Obviously, not a lot of work experience at such a young age, but we know there's volunteer opportunities. There may have been things that you've done with your local churches or your school and different projects you worked on. And so we really try to get those different pieces of information, get them to start thinking about things they've done throughout their lives to add on to a resume. And not just use the resume to apply to the high school internship program, but to use that to apply to other different roles as well. And so I want to make sure that we get those flyers out to the community so that we can start getting more folks in the Community Board 1 area to apply. The third and final thing I'll mention, the second to final thing I'll mention is the Gun Violence Prevention Fellowship that we have as well. That one is very specific and strategic, where we're hiring 2 people and providing a stipend to work specifically on gun violence policies within our office. This is for folks that has been impacted by gun violence. That's not exactly defined, and I know if you live in New York City, at some point we've been impacted by gun violence one way or another. And essentially, we're looking to get 2 young people into the office to help expand our perspective and see what the office can do a little bit more about gun violence. In the past, they've attended and spoken with the previous DA and gave some recommendations. Some things that we had was expanding our social media to include more inclusiveness to young people, as well as having an Art of Healing event where we can connect more with young people through the creative arts. So we're excited about that. I don't have the exact dollar amount for the stipend, but I know that's something that we're rolling out as well. And I believe the deadline for that is March 5th. All of this information I'll send via email and include flyers for them as well. And the last and final thing I'll mention is Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month, which is actually this month. Our office, we have a youth and education team that conducts educational programs, where we have assistant district attorneys going out into the community and providing workshops on how to prevent teen dating violence. And so we encourage folks to be able to take advantage of that. I'll include, again, the link for that, where you can simply go on the website and make a request for a presentation. So I'll end it there. I see that Alvin has called in, and so hopefully we can get some sound going, and I'll just pass it back on to Tammy to see if we can get Alvin on the phone.
Absolutely. Double checking to see where his phone number pops.
*6. Oh, he's unmuted.
Yeah, great.
Hi. I'm sorry
Hello.
for these technical difficulties. Can you hear me now?
We can indeed. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Great. And I think Chantarelle Sung, okay, she's trying to join from another computer as well. I don't know why this isn't working on our end, so I apologize. But I heard the end of what Kevin was saying, so I'm happy you had opportunity to share those opportunities with you. I just wanted to kind of briefly, kind of reintroduce myself to some. I guess introduce myself for the first time to many when I look at the name. So I am, honored to be the district attorney, honored to be a neighbor here, as where our office is, right here with you. And so wanted to just introduce myself. I'm a career prosecutor. I've worked in this neighborhood actually for the better part of 20 years now, as a state prosecutor, as a federal prosecutor, doing the whole range of work, from hate crimes work to gun work to offenses involving sexual offenses, to financial fraud, to public corruption, and of course all of that experience is relevant to, unfortunately and sadly, to what we're handling every day in Manhattan in the DA's office. Kevin mentioned some of our priorities. The gun work and the fellowship is very exciting to me, to get some youth involved in what is certainly an urgent crisis on our island and really throughout the country. And so that person will be working with a new position we've created, an executive assistant district attorney for gun violence prevention, a career prosecutor who will be basically connecting the dots. We've brought, I think, about north of 70 gun possession cases already this year. Again, unfortunately, and his job is connecting the dots. The assistant district attorneys working on those cases are focused on the matter before them. Peter Pope, our executive ADA, is going to be connecting the dots using gun tracing technology, using human intelligence, undercovers, confidential informants, to try to take cases which are about one gun and turn them into cases that are about 20 or 25 guns to really address the urgent crisis. So I've worked with Peter before. He was the head of the criminal division when I was early in my career at the AG's office, and I'm excited about him making an impact in this space. I'll just lift up a couple more other sort of priorities. I know that the commercial theft and robbery is an issue. We've formed a small business alliance. We had our first meeting last Friday. It was very productive. A number of business owners, including right here in this community board, with the leadership being co-led by this area, and NYPD participating. And it was really productive, digging into the data showing that really this phenomenon is being driven by a relatively small number of people, and then we can use our tools to focus on those people. Some of them, as we crack into the data and look more closely, will be people who we can connect with services. Others will be repeat conduct doers who are being opportunistic, and we can use traditional tools to hold them accountable. So that work is underway, and happy to kind of answer more questions about it. Last, and in some ways the most important, is what we're doing on hate crimes, and hopefully Chantarelle Sung will be able to join as well. She's running point in our work there. Obviously, this is we look at during COVID, the things that have sort of spiked up: gun violence, domestic violence, hate crimes, and so we are working with a team here that's incredible, fantastic team on hate crimes, but a small team, and we're looking to deepen that capacity. Chantarelle is working on that, looking really to work in community with our partners. We had a meeting with many leaders from the AAPI community on Tuesday, which was scheduled before the horrific events of this weekend, but it was a good time to come together, talk about our plans in the office, how we're deepening the capacity, try to deepen our interaction with the community, and strengthen our investigative rigor in connection with the NYPD. We know a lot of matters that have started and being investigated not as a hate crime, so being kind of ruled out from the beginning, and that's not our orientation. We're starting from the premise of, if it could be a hate crime, we're going to investigate it in that way, looking at social media, looking at all the circumstances, and we just really need to scale up our resources so that we can handle the unfortunate docket in this space. So I'll leave it there, and again, I'm trying to work to get some video. Now I have some people helping me, so no, it's not just my human error, but happy to take questions or proceed however you'd like.
And Alvin, I was able to join. This is Chantarelle Sung, Chief of Strategic Operations at the Manhattan DA's office. I apologize. We are having technical difficulties, so I'm sitting in my colleague Estelle's office to join you all. Happy to speak further on the work we're doing in the hate crimes unit, or if you all have questions and want to jump in with that, we can do that.
Why don't we do, if you can, just 4 minutes on the hate crimes unit, if you don't mind, and then we'll do 5 to 7 minutes of Q&A. And for board members, please make sure you put your hands up, because we'll do hands raised and then move to the public.
Yeah, I think this, whatever.
That sounds good. So as mentioned, I am Chief of Strategic Operations, but in this capacity, Alvin ensured that more resources are being directed towards the work of the hate crimes unit. So what that means is that we actually have 2 levels of executive resources directed towards the hate crimes unit in terms of ensuring that we can enhance the work that the unit is doing and expand the unit. It's me overseeing strategy and operations to that effect, but also the chief of the trial division, Joyce Smith, who is also overseeing that work. The unit itself has a chief, Hannah Yu, as well as a deputy chief, Jessica Rinaldi, and we're moving towards having both of those positions become full-time. And we're also, in addition to that, going to be hiring and putting out more job postings to enhance our victim services support with regards to that unit, enhancing our cultural and linguistic competencies, ensuring that we're out there doing more advocacy work for victims. In addition, expanding our partnerships with other external enforcement agencies and community-based organizations as well. And that Alvin spoke a little bit about, the fact that oftentimes when a case comes to us, we're looking at it for any evidence of potential hate. And we are aware that there are instances in which when a case comes to us from NYPD, it might not be coming to us as a potential hate crime, but we need to do everything we can to look for any evidence of hate. And so these are, in some cases, proactive investigations pre-arrest. And then in addition, we are making sure that we're doing everything we can to investigate those cases that do come in post-arrest as potential hate crimes. We do have our own hotline, and that has been very successful in terms of victims and witnesses who call into that hotline and are very grateful and appreciative that there is this additional channel to report such incidents to us, to the extent that they have not received sufficient response from NYPD. So we can put into the chat that hotline number as well, because we do rely on the community and to you all as eyes and ears as well, to make sure that we are being responsive to any incidents of hate. I think that's all I can share for now, unless you have specific questions.
We do have people with hands up, if you don't mind. So first, we're going to go to Pat Moore, who chairs our Quality of Life Committee. Pat?
Thank you for coming tonight. We appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule. A couple of months ago, so I'm the chair of the Quality of Life Committee, and our committee a couple of months ago actually had an officer come in, a police officer come in, and I know it's slightly different, and maybe this question should be directed to the police commissioner, but I'm going to ask you anyway. So we were told that in terms of the police, that the task force, the AAPI task force, was just officers working at part-time, that there was no permanent, fully staffed department to work, to work against hate crimes. So is this something, would you explain to us, have the police changed that? Is there now a fully staffed office to work against hate crimes? And if so, how are you working with that office? If not, are you going to help the police get a fully staffed office?
Yeah, so Alvin, I can take that, and maybe please jump in if you have more to add. So there is an actual hate crimes task force within NYPD that is fully staffed. It has approximately 20 detectives, which we actually think is probably not enough because they're citywide and they serve all 5 boroughs. I think what you were referring to is a separate task force, Asian task force that might have been set up sometime last year. But for our hate crimes work, we work very closely with the NYPD Hate Crimes Task Force. And that has an inspector, although as of last night, we learned that there is going to be a change in terms of who's heading up that task force. But they are supported by 20 detectives. So when we get a case, the thing that's very important that we need to ensure we're working closely with NYPD on is that a case does not get enhanced as a hate crime in the records or documentation of NYPD unless it's classified that way by NYPD, and then that will trigger an enhancement, and then that means the hate crimes task force will be notified, and then the case is assigned to a detective from that unit. So we have to work very hard as an office to ensure that even in cases where NYPD doesn't think it's a hate crime, but we do, that in their documentation, it's indicated in that way so that then NYPD will allocate the necessary resources on that case to treat it as a hate crime.
And so what about specifically, though, the Asian Hate Crimes Task Force? Are they fully funded and are they fully staffed?
The fact that we're not aware of a specific Asian hate crimes task force in NYPD might be an indication that they're might not be fully staffed or resourced. I don't know, Alvin, if you have any other information on that, but
No, yeah,
Well,
the part of the NYPD task force that I'm familiar with is the one that you outlined, Chantarelle.
so this may be something that we need to ask the new police commissioner, but it is something that we wrote a reso requesting, just to make you aware, we wrote a reso requesting that the police have, specifically an Asian hate crimes task force, and that they fully funded and that they have it fully staffed. You know, not having officers that just work that task force part-time when they had time, but officers that were specifically assigned.
WebEx, I think my browser is not. I think it's fine. Yeah. You gotta go so you can get back, right? No, I'm done. Oh.
That's Pat. We have other hands up. So
Yeah, I'm done.
thank you. No, thank you for that, Pat, because I do remember actually joining one other community board, one meeting, I think it was last year, where I believe someone from that task force was on the call. So we will follow up with that. But that is something that we need to definitely, if that exists.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
all right. I have, before we go to other people, I actually had a question. So wanted to ask, is it possible for you to use some of the asset forfeiture funds that help support the specialized unit for multiple years to come to ensure that we have full-time officers and detectives?
It's so interesting. I was meeting with our asset forfeiture folks today, talking about not that specific question, but the more general issue of how we can use forfeiture funds to support hate crimes enforcement. So it's something that we're actively exploring. I also had a meeting earlier today with a legislator talking about getting additional funding through the traditional appropriations process. There are limitations on what we can use the forfeiture money for. As a general matter, it can't be used on sort of personnel, and so there are some limits. And also, a lot of that money has been spent down, and we're trying to kind of get funding through the appropriations process. But I literally, about 3 hours ago, was just asking our budget folks well, not the question specifically about the NYT, but more about our staffing, because I was talking about our capacity. So we can't do it through the forfeiture funds, but we can have other support. We can do the forfeiture funds, but we can hire more people if we have more appropriations in the budget. So I was speaking with a member of the legislature earlier today about that as well. It's top of mind for us.
Perfect. Well, thank you. I see more hands. So you go. Justine Kucha is next, and then after Justine, I believe Jimmy Sung would like to go, and then we move to the public.
Sure. Thanks so much, Tam. Thanks so much, Tammy. District Attorney Bragg, thank you so much for being here, and also thank you for the information about the hate crimes unit. I have a question about bail reform, because I don't think many residents in Lower Manhattan want to return to the incarceral state, but neither do any of us want to live in the state of lawlessness. And I'm wondering, where's the right balance and how do we get there? That's my first question. If you have an answer to that, and then I've got a related question.
Yeah, so that's something that we're thinking a lot about, and I'm sort of a data person, so I've been looking at the data and looking at things like the data showing that of everyone released on bail, only 2%. That's the number, so that has been arrested again on something violent, and then also mindful that many of the trends we're seeing here in New York are national and based also in places that didn't have changes to the law. So again, like I said, I'm sort of in touch with members of the legislature. There was some data that came out from the state earlier this year, and then it was kind of changed a few days later. So I'm kind of actively looking at the data, to kind of strike the equilibrium and find the right kind of outcome. So far, I think it's hard to draw data conclusions from the kind of pandemic era data set. And so I've been looking nationally, and the fact that some other places are experiencing the same phenomenon suggests to me that, the connections are based on other variables, but it's something that literally, we've got a research team here, and we've got a dashboard on our website that just provides the data publicly, and I was going through that dashboard with our team earlier today. So again, it's something that's top of mind and that we're looking at, and my answers will always be guided by the data as it comes in.
Thank you for that answer, and thank you for looking in and keeping on top of it. So I guess my next question, or it's a related question, it's because part of the issue with what's going on in our city now is related to mental health services, and you're going to have a large over the bail reform issues and the laws related to that, but you're going to have no control over what kind of mental health services are being put in place. But what I'm seeing and what I think I have issues with is that the mental health services are lacking is where we see the recidivism by emotionally disturbed offenders. And while that may be hard to predict or not hard to predict, it's like, where's the middle ground and what is available to a prosecutor between locking up every defendant for as long as possible versus using our jails to warehouse the mentally ill? Because from my perspective, neither of these procedures or choices get at the point of preventing the crimes to begin with. And I don't know what you can do as a district attorney to address that, but can you?
So I think there are things that we can do, and in fact, I have no vote in the legislature on bills like bail or anything else, but on mental health, I think there's we can't do it all from this seat. I mean, it's going to have to be coordinated with other stakeholders in government. But one thing that we can certainly do, a lot of the time when we read about a horrific act that's been done by someone with a mental health issue, it's usually on their 7th or 8th, touch point with the criminal justice system. And so what we're doing is, looking at those kind of early interactions when people are coming in and really trying to ramp up services, when it's something that is not the kind of horrific act we're talking about, but something that's more, at the initial stage of someone is sort of cycling up or down, depending on your perspective, and driving services there. That's one thing that we're looking to ramp up, and also doing it earlier in the case, someone getting mental health services after they've been, as you say, in Rikers for 9 months. The efficacy of that's going to be lower. That's one thing that we're looking at. The other thing is I was on a panel the other day with the Greenberger Center, which is building a sort of exact middle ground between what you're talking about, between having someone sort of out on the streets or in Rikers in incarceration, building a semi-secure facility for people with serious mental illness to address those mental illness needs. So I kind of definitely support that middle apparatus, which is not available to prosecutors now. And then finally, I would say our mental health court, this is something we've got to do in coordination with the service providers and with the court. But right now, we're at a cap of kind of 50 people who can sort of be in the pipeline. That's the contractual cap, and sometimes they will go over a little bit. But if you think about the volume of cases in Manhattan, we all know that it's more than 50 people who've got a serious mental illness. So we have to, think about how we can sort of expand and get people into mental health court or something like it, get those folks who are on our docket treatment. And we're talking to the courts about it, talking to the service providers. And it's challenging. It does go back to funding again. And I think there's a broad consensus that we could have that number be far higher than 50, but coordinating and scaling up and getting the funding is another matter.
Sure. No, that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Justine. Thank you. We are moving next to Jimmy Sung.
Hi, Mr. DA. First, I want to say that you have a difficult work ahead of you, and I, for one, is definitely will do everything possible to support you. I have two questions. Number one, kind of following Justine, that it looks like that this is very similar to the gun issue. It's a very complex problem, and if the DA's office can work with us and also other agencies or government to take a more proactive approach to try to take care of the homeless and the mental health issues, so it doesn't deteriorate to a point that become a serious criminal situation. And we'll really appreciate any initiative from your office. Number two is that, do you feel that you have sufficient, the current law and statutes regarding hate crime, is this sufficient enough for you to do your work? Or do we need more legislations?
So on the first one, I mean, I think, working together is always going to be more productive. And so we're here in partnership, and Chanterelle has been sort of our point person reaching out. And so we welcome if there are, groups you think we need to be reaching and talking to and talking about our work, in particular, sort of all to the end of not just educating them about what we do, but making people feel more comfortable coming forward to us with cases. We're all ears and kind of happy to be in any spaces you think we should be. On the second one, the hate crime law is a sort of a interesting, as for some who, for those who don't know, there's specific, crimes listed to which you can then, add a hate crime charge, and how those crimes came to be listed and ones that could be added, or frankly, there's, I think, an argument that we could be added to anything that's in the penal law. So look, I think there's definitely room to improve the statute, but I think right now the issue is, not so much the statute, but is us connecting with the community in doing the work under the current statute that we can do. We can bring cases under the current statute that may not have been brought, previously, using some of the investigative techniques that Chanterelle and I were talking about. Just because someone doesn't utter a epithet at the scene, or just because they don't draw an epithet, doesn't mean it's not a hate crime. And so we need to start, thinking about things that we kind of look at and say that may be a hate crime, and sort of having a no stone unturned approach to our investigations. And that's what our folks are doing and have been doing, but we've got to drive more resources so they can do it with the unfortunately larger docket that we now have. We have on our docket now, more hate crimes than since the unit was created.
If I can just take 1 minute of your time, so for example,
Jimmy,
yes,
we have three other
No problem.
speakers. I apologize.
That's
we can
right.
come back to you. That's kind of the way we go. Everybody gets one shot. It's supposed to be, and then we come back. So
No problem.
we're going to go down the road. Jan Lee, if you don't mind, Lucian, from the public session, it'll be Jan Lee, then Nancy Kong, and then we'll come back to Jimmy.
Bragg, thank you so much for this time. I'm greatly encouraged to know that Chanterelle Sung is on your team, and the things that you said about having no stone unturned. I have faith that you're going to pursue every possible detail in every case that comes before you. You stood with us at Neighbors United Below Canal almost 10 months ago in front of the proposed jail site at 125 White Street. And you greatly encouraged the community by saying that you did not agree that this site was appropriate to build a jail. As the Manhattan District Attorney, do you still feel that you could support the community in stopping the jail, that you still feel the same way as you did when you were a candidate standing with us?
So I still feel the same way. I don't have the authority, I think, to stop it, but I certainly can lend my voice, as I've said, before. I mean, we're here as a DA, but we're also here as a neighbor. So, the building we're talking about would be, literally, right next to us. And I think this connects a couple of threads of the conversation. If we're able to do, what we want to do in terms of, someone mentioned sort of mental health and homelessness, and we talked about services, we were able to do that. We were able to keep that population low. We can then, make the argument to the decision makers, right, which was, I guess, ultimately the council and the mayor, that, there's no need for a massive skyscraper anywhere, but even in addition and beyond that, that certainly this is not the appropriate, place for that. So yeah, I have the exact same sentiment. I mean, it's maybe perhaps, in the seat very aware of, my powers as just a, executing courts. I don't have a vote in the council, but certainly have the, exact same view that I had, you say 10 months ago. I'll take you on the word on that. It feels like a couple of years ago.
I will say thank you, and I'm sure there's everybody on our board would cheer and clap if we were all in person and stand and applaud that answer, so thank you. We're going to move on to Nancy Kong in the public session, followed by, it says John.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
No.
Nancy?
Nancy, you can unmute yourself now.
Got it. Thank you very much. My question, District Attorney Bragg, I actually have, following up on Justine's train of thought, I'd like to really ask you for your help, not just related to the borough-based jails, not just, voicing your opposition to it, but really to help us with solutions. And for you to get involved in conversations with the borough-based jails. Currently in the city's plan, there's only 250 beds slated, which is clearly not enough to address the number of detainees suffering from mental health issues. I think with your help advocating for proper treatment versus jail and detention time is part of the solution. This will help decrease the detainee population and the size of the mega jails that are slated, as you've noted, for our community. Additionally, when detainees with mental illness are released, they're released into our neighborhoods without the proper support and without the proper help. So in your position, which you are quite influential, I would just ask you to help with the solutions and be the good neighbor and be the good district attorney for our district. So thank you very much.
Sure, and I like actually how you distilled the issue down by focusing on, the sub-issue of mental health, which I'm certainly a proponent of alternatives there. I mentioned the semi-secure facility that Greenberger Center is working on. That's not a complete solution. Again, I think that I can't remember how many beds. That's not enough beds for all the issues, but that model of something that's not, people, on the street not treated versus not in Rikers is one that I think we need to be looking to, replicate and cheer on. And so I'm trying to do that. And if there are other ways that I can lend my voice, let us know.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We're going to John in the public session and then Edward Kucha. And we are winding down for you shortly, just so you know. John, you're unmuted.
Here, my 97-year-old mother, and I really appreciate District Attorney Bragg, you taking the time to talk with us. I know how hard your job is. My daughter was in ADA for 10 years at the Manhattan office. And so every night when she came home, I heard all the things that you have to contend with, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us.
Thank you.
Because of the way in which you've carried yourself and the integrity that you have, I think you're underselling how much you can help us find a good solution to the jail scraper. One of the things that we heard is that your predecessor was one of the reasons why the city baited and switched. He didn't really want to go through the disruption of his offices and the new offices that are built in the Marriage Bureau, and became an ally in Mayor de Blasio's plan to move the jail up to White Street against, if you talk to anybody who's on this phone call, everybody in the neighborhood doesn't think this is a good idea. And if you could lend your voice in terms of analyzing this and figuring out what we can do, we're in a real serious race because there's $9 billion pushing this thing down the road. And it's just us trying to come up with a better solution. You could really, really help us.
Understood. I did certainly, that history predates me, and I guess in some ways, it's a new moment altogether, not just in this office, but a new mayor and a new city council. And so, yes, so we will continue this conversation, maybe, in a more granular way, and give thought. I mean, I think the biggest way we as an office affect this is the inputs in terms of, the number of people, being detained and thinking about, as I think the last person talked about, issues like mental health and other things like that, creatively and differently can really help advance the ball. So I will talk to the other stakeholders about these issues and sort of about our plans and how those inputs, affect, what is the plan for, the borough plan.
Perfect. We're going next to Edward Kucha and then Mariama James, who's one of our board members.
I just also want to do a quick time check. I know there's several questions. Alvin has another meeting that started at 6:45, so just wanted to let folks know.
Yeah, so we will go only, those are the only, there are 3 hands up who have not spoken. I'll make sure that everybody, speaks once and that's it. So
thank you, Tammy.
You're welcome. Edward?
Hi, thank you, Tammy. Can you hear me?
Loudly, yes.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, Tammy. Thank you, CB1. Mr. Bragg, we spoke briefly yesterday, and I want to thank you again for having the outreach to the Asian community. My name is Ed Kucha. I'm happily, I live in Chinatown, work in Chinatown. My wife is Asian, so I'm very concerned about Asian hate. I really want to thank Chanterelle Sung for being on your committee and working with you as well. I just want to lend my voice to the issues of the jail. My offices are in the Chung Pak jail complex. I share a common wall with the soon-to-be demolished jail. And I can let you know, sir, that there has been extraordinarily limited community outreach. I have been keeping this board, the community board, aware of the lack of community outreach, even though my offices are a ground floor. We're a retail space office. It's a law office, but we have a ground floor space. I've been visited once in the last 3 years by anyone from the city of New York, and I have not been visited since. I have been asked ridiculous demands from the city of New York. It's been a nightmare and likely will continue to be one. So I just want to let this community board know, and you, sir, as well. We thank you for your outreach, but the community outreach from the city in regard to the jail and the community stakeholders has been little or none, and it's just a shame. And I'll leave it at that. And thank you all.
Edward.
And I'll mute myself. Thank you all.
Mariama James, you're next, and then Rosa Chang.
Thank you for being here. I think that we can all agree that we don't need a jail tower, that we don't need any more jails in Chinatown. Some would argue we don't need any more jails, period, full stop. And we don't need any more shelters, I think, in Chinatown either, and probably in Friday as well, for that matter. And it's going to be really important to dig into that mental health component. And I don't know how much range you have in that area, but I mean, I think sometimes that some of these crimes are committed, maybe not the very serious ones, but some of these crimes are committed so people can get off the street. You know, if you're homeless and mentally ill and you want to be inside and it's 20 degrees outside, you commit a crime, you go into jail and you get fed 3 times a day and you have a bed to sleep in. But aside from that, in addition to that, the housing crisis and mental illness, both of those 2 things not getting attention is what's causing not only what we've been seeing in Chinatown, but what we're seeing all over and with our young people, and even with police officers, that their suicide rates are up. So I don't know how much reach you have in terms of mental health, but that's the aspect that I would really like to see get some attention, as well as housing, and then treating the crimes appropriately once they go into the system. I think it's great to be not leaving a stone unturned in terms of hate crimes, but at the same time, there's a slippery slope there because, you know, we could start to see people saying everything is a hate crime, and then, you know, more people of color ending up on the short end of the stick with that, just like what passed recently in Florida, the white comfort law. I see a lot of danger coming with things like that too.
Thank you, Mariama. We're going to go directly over to Rosa Chang. You're next.
Thank you so much.
Rosa, you'll be our last call.
Ooh, wow. So nice to meet you virtually, DA Bragg. I'm not used to walking around feeling like a demographic. I think of myself as a human being first. But now I am in the bizarre position of walking around intensely aware of the fact that I'm an Asian female, and the fact that I'm an Asian female puts me at risk. I'm actually not scared of the homeless. I'm extremely concerned, though, about people that I see that have substance abuse and mental health issues, and I know that that overlaps enormously with the homeless population as well. But the reason why I'm scared of them is because I feel like their decision-making abilities may be compromised, and therefore so may our safety. I don't think they belong in jail. Because I don't see how that fixes the problem. I think that they need support and we need safety, and we both need both of those things now. So I'm wondering, what is your plan to address this crisis now? Because I do feel like it is a crisis, and you know, you're seeing people sort of at the end when the problem has sort of exploded, but I feel like you have an important position to address and watch and monitor these crises as they explode.
No, yeah, you make a good point. I mean, we've talked a lot about sort of the back end, which is, you know, what we're prosecuting once something happens. I do think that on the front end, which is, you know, a number of the other, either your fellow board members or members of the public have noted, so the mental health issues, which, you know, are not attached to sort of one of these horrific events. And so intervening there, which is our plan and part of our current process we're putting in place, I think, while not completely front end, something has happened that they're now involved in the justice system. But having that intervention in a serious way, you know, earlier, before something has escalated, I think is not completely front end. You know, kind of almost by definition, you know, by the time my office gets involved, you know, something has occurred. You know, that's why we like the outreach and sort of the public education. And I think there are things that we've done with our forfeiture funds, which are made, you know, kind of investing in communities and investing in public safety. So we're doing all of that, although I think you correctly point out sort of our core responsibility is, you know, once someone has become justice involved. So I think the most significant thing we can do there is when people are, you know, engaged in a, you know, an incident that may not be what we're reading in the paper, catching it there and providing services there and addressing serious mental illness there. So I have to leave it there. I've got to go. I've actually got to go to another community board virtually, but I thank you for your time. I thank you for all the work you're doing in the community board, and look forward to partnering in the months and years ahead.
We appreciate you coming very, very much. Thank you so much. We're going to actually send you our resolution on the jails, if you don't mind. It is imminent change in your next door, as you noted, and any support that we can have that you offered so graciously at the rallies and everything, we would love. You have a potentially closer ear to the mayor sometimes than the community. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll also add as a last sort of point, Alvin may not know this already, but his schedule is very packed, so he may not know where he's going to be. But we're going to be at the Community Board 1 full board meeting next week, Tuesday, to speak to the full board and the rest of the community. So if there are any other lingering questions, you can feel free to ask there. And I'm also including my name and contact information in the chat for any follow-up as well. So thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you very, very much. Really appreciate the partnership. It's lovely to start this way. And good luck with your next community board. All righty. So let's move along for Manhattan Community Board 1. Thank you so much, everybody, for a nice, robust dialogue. Great way to welcome him in. We're going to welcome, we have a rather large team on site today in regards to the borough-based jails, Manhattan Detention Center, complex, demolition, environmental issues. Diana, are you on? I'm going to have Diana set the table for us a little bit on it because we have had so many people sign up today. So Diana, take it away for me.
Yeah, sure. And Lucian, in the meantime, if you can pass presenter privileges to Lauren from DDC so she could pull up her presentation.
Perfect. You got
All right, let me refer to my notes here. I prepared something that I'm trying to be as thorough and concise I can be at the same time. But I wanted to set a little context because this topic has come through several committees and is happening over multiple meetings over time. So I wanted to make sure that people understood where we are now and why this conversation specifically is taking place in executive tonight. So DDC was originally preparing to fold the conversation on borough-based jails and Manhattan Detention Complex environmental questions and concerns in during their update to the Land Use Committee earlier in the month. We had a number of detailed requests and DDC needed more time to get the right information and the right personnel together. Tonight's executive committee meeting was the best scheduling option, considering that we requested that this conversation take place before construction begins. DDC has recently taken over engagement surrounding the beginning of this current dismantle and swing space contract for the Manhattan site. And as we continue through this phase, updates on the dismantling process specifically will happen in the Quality of Life Committee. The team also attended the Land Use Committee meeting earlier this month to present on some general updates and for the Interim Sallyport project. Prior to the start of this current contract, engagement on borough-based jails in the Manhattan Detention Complex was conducted through the Mayor's Community Advisory Unit under the last administration, and historically engagement has been very, very bad. We've already heard that tonight from a number of people. It's echoed through this process. CB1 went on record a number of times to just express dismay over how poor engagement has been. But I do want, as staff, I want to thank DDC and recognize them for how responsive they've been since taking over. We have a lot of requests. They have inherited a lot of bad feelings about this project. It's incredibly heavy. There's a long list of unanswered questions from the last phases of engagement that they have picked up and have taken on. And I worked on this project in last phases, so I do think it's important to recognize the difference in the amount of communication, the information that's coming in, because I think that's important. There are still a lot of issues to work through, but there's a notable difference. Our CB1 Community Planning Fellow James is working on tracking the various requests, what's still pending, what's been fulfilled, and where to find it. That should be ready to be shared soon so everyone can follow along in real time. In the broader context of borough-based jails, CB1 is on record most recently through our resolution last month, urging this new mayoral administration to pause the borough-based jails plan and to reassess whether or not it still even makes sense as presented. In the meantime, the contract for the dismantling is proceeding. DDC is tasked with carrying out this segment of the project, but they don't make decisions about the project itself, so please keep that in mind with your questions and comments. We have a team of almost 30 people on tonight. I think that might be a record, which is very exciting to address the environmental issues we've identified. So let's try to be productive with our time in focusing in that area. I know we have a lot to get through. I'm going to leave it there and turn it over to DDC, but I'll post my information in the chat. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions, if you're looking for specific information, if you want to know what meetings are happening. I am available and happy to help.
Okay, and thank you very much, Diana. With that, I'm gonna welcome the DDC team to unmic as they need and start the presentation from the top, because I think that's gonna be faster. We will hold hands up, and I'd like to be able to take some Q&A. I know that when we're talking about presentation, I believe you had 20 to 30 minutes of presentation, then we would do Q&A afterwards. It's 6:59. We cleared most of the rest of the schedule to make sure that this is something that can be robust. What we will do is ask the public and the board members to limit their questions to no more than 2 minutes. And with that, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Diana, and thank you, Tammy, and thank you to everyone for allowing us to come tonight and present to this committee. We do appreciate it. We appreciate your time. With that, let me share my screen and get the presentation up so we can dive right in. Slideshow mode. Okay, just a quick, can everyone see my screen? Yes. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay. So as Diana mentioned, we have a very full agenda tonight, and this is in response to a number of questions that we have received from the community board, and we'll be going through those tonight. So we'll start with the schedule update. Again, those of you who have been at any of our very recent and numerous community board meetings. You've seen this before, it hasn't changed, but I do just want to reiterate it for everyone who this might be new content to. So we'll go through our schedule update for the Manhattan facility. We'll touch very briefly on community resources, just letting people know how they can get in touch and get information in between community board meetings and other outreach like that. Then we'll talk about the alternatives analysis results. What that is referring to is we have received a number of questions from the community board, and this came up at our recent land use committee meeting as to why we are dismantling the existing facility and building a new jail rather than just rehabbing the facility that is already in place. So we hope to address that and answer that, and that will also include information on why the proposed Sally Port is in the location that it is. Then we'll get into the environmental and safety plans that will make up the majority of our presentation tonight. And I just want to acknowledge again a number of the questions and requests that we got from the community board for a lot of these reports that contain the information we're presenting tonight. A lot of this will have to be requested formally through the FOIL process. But again, our team, we're here tonight because we really want to make a good faith effort to communicate out this information to you in advance while you're waiting for those full reports to be released. And so that's why we're here. We have a pretty deep bench of technical people on here to answer your questions, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. All right, so project schedule. Just to make sure it's very clear for everyone, the overall project proceeds in two parts. There's the team that's here tonight. There's two different design build teams. The first one has been onboarded. They are covering the dismantle of the existing facility and the construction of the interim Sally Port. The interim Sally Port is slated to begin construction, that team received their notice to proceed in December of this last year, so they've kicked off at the start of the new year. They are slated to begin construction on the new Sally Port, the interim Sally Port, in March of this year, and that construction will continue through July of this year. The interim Sally Port will remain in place for the duration of construction until substantial completion of the new facility in 2027. Once this mantle is complete, there is a new design build team that we brought on board for the design and construction of the new facility. So that's why we're not able to share detailed plans about the design of the new facility yet today. That will happen once we have that design build team onboarded. The RFP to procure that team went out in December of this last year, and we are on track to have the new team on board with their notice to proceed in the first quarter of 2023. As far as community resources during construction, as I mentioned, we have our community board briefings, but in addition to that, if you need information in the meantime, there are many ways to get it. We have our Borough-based Jails website where we post all presentations, all advisories, updates to the timeline, status updates, that all goes up on the website. Our community construction liaison, Pauline Chan, is sort of on the ground. She has a storefront office a block from the construction site. She has a designated phone number where you can reach her to ask questions. We'll be issuing quarterly newsletters with broader based updates about the project. We do weekly look aheads with imminent construction activities. And then in the event of any impactful construction activities, we do issue 72-hour advisories. Those go out to the neighborhood notification list. If you want to be on that list and are not, please put your information into the chat tonight. And those advisories also get posted around the neighborhood. And as I mentioned, Pauline Chan, our CCL, she has an office at 110 Walker Street. Sorry, that was on the previous slide. It's a block from the construction site. This is her contact phone number, just dedicated phone number for the project, and her email address. So you can reach out to her anytime with questions. She acts as a direct conduit between the community and the construction teams to provide responses and answers. Oh, and with that, we'll get into what we're calling the alternatives analysis results. So a little bit of an explanation as to why it is that we are dismantling the existing facility and building a new one rather than just rehabbing what's already there today. So with that, I will turn it over to Sasha Ginsberg from DOC to speak to this.
Hi, my name is Sasha Ginsberg, and I'm the Executive Director of the Borough-based Jail System at DOC. As you can see, at the beginning of our master planning process, which I believe commenced in 2018 and 2019, we did do an alternatives analysis to see if it was possible to rehab the existing Manhattan detention facility. However, based on all of the information that's on this slide, which given our time for tonight, I will not read for everyone, it was determined that it was not possible. The thing that I want to draw our attention to is the box on the right-hand side of the slide that talks really about how much more program we are putting into the new facility. The entire purpose of the borough, or one of the main purposes, excuse me, of the borough-based jail system is to provide humane environments for both people in custody and staff. And many of these factors take up square footage. And so our main constraint with the existing detention facility is both its layout, that it was not built in a way that reflects the normative environment and an environment that we are trying to create, and the size constraints of not being able to include the amount of program space that we are trying to include to support both people in custody and the staff. So I'm happy to answer any further questions about that, but all the information is on the slide as well. And with that, I think I'll hand it off to Nina.
Thanks, Sasha. So we got a number of comments last week at the community board meeting about the location of the Sallyport and why it is located in front of the courthouse on Center Street. And so we thought we'd try to address those with some diagrams of both the courthouse and in plan, which is on the right, and in section, which is on the left. So you can see what's being proposed is in the blue color along Center Street. It's a new enclosure, secure enclosure for people that are in custody coming in vans to be safely escorted into the building of the courthouse so they can go up to court. What the dotted line is showing you is the path of their travel as they come out of the exterior and into the building through doors that exist now, past a control room, past DOC operations, and into the DOC holding before they come up into the courthouse. A question was, why could it not have been on Baxter Street? As you can see in the diagram, along Baxter Street are courtrooms and court holding. The other concern along Baxter, there's a number of concerns. One, it's a very narrow sidewalk, and so the idea of putting a Sallyport out there would impact the sidewalk as well as traffic. There's also, it's a much, the street is much narrower, so I'm not sure that you'd want to have DOC vehicles really transversing that street, as well as it's right across from the park. So that was part of why we thought that along Center Street was the better location for it. There was another question that was asked as to why can't we leave the existing Sallyport in place and continue to use that during the dismantle of the detention facility. What I'm showing in the diagram on the left bottom is the detention facility was built after the courthouse. And it actually, the span and the building goes underneath the existing Sallyport. There is the party wall is actually where the red dotted line is. So there is not a double column grid underneath the existing Sallyport. So if we do the dismantle, that will affect the existing Sallyport. As well as there are two bridges above the Sallyport, which are going to be dismantled as part of the project. So that is why we felt that we could not reuse that existing Sallyport. As Sasha said, if there are additional questions, we can answer those when we get to the Q&A section.
We definitely know there are questions, just have no fear.
Yeah,
they're already piling in, and I know that people have hands up and have already texted me, when do I get to raise my hand? So yes.
No problem. Happy to answer.
All right, thank you, Nina and Sasha. So we'll move on now to the safety and environmental plans regarding the dismantle and interim Sallyport project. And for that, we'll have Anil, who's the construction lead for the program management consulting team, and Rich Peterson from Gramercy, the contractor who's actually doing a lot of this work, present this information. So Anil, I think you're first up.
Good afternoon, everyone. For some reason, my camera is not working, but hopefully you could hear me. Can you guys hear me?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so actually this slide is Rich. So Rich, you want to take this slide, and I think the next one is mine.
No problem. Good evening, everybody. My name is Peterson. I am the construction manager for the design build. So far, I am working on the site assessment and surveys. We've been doing that in January, and it's been continuing through to today. Interim Sallyport construction is planning to kick off in March and be completed by July. We are gearing up for the fence and site mobilization in February. It's coming up on the end of February right now, so we are anticipating that to be officially started probably the first week of March. Artwork removal and storage will resume as soon as the site is enclosed, and then the dismantlement work will begin in May. Anil, handing it back to you.
Great, thanks, Rich. So it's important to note that the design build is required to file permit with all agency having jurisdiction for the borough-based project. I listed some of the agency here. For example, with Department of Buildings, there are several permits that are going to be filed with the Department of Building with regards to our project. There's general construction, there is dismantlement, there is plumbing, sprinkler, there is several Alt-2 permits, fencing, fire alarm, electrical. With the Department of Transportation, there will be sidewalk and street closure. DEP, there will be water hydrant, ACM abatement, Parks Department, tree protection, mitigation. Con Edison, there is some utilities, there is some oil static line and steam line. So we're coordinating with Con Ed as well. The MTA subway tunnel under the North Tower. So there's quite a bit of coordination and permitting required for this project. And I know that was a specific question asked, and we have been reaching out to all these agencies, having coordination meeting, and start the process of start filing for these permits. Obviously, there's a lot of prep work that involved in order to pull these permits. So, just fire department, there's sprinkler and standpipe, public design commission for the artwork and Sallyport, the landmark preservation for the HAPs and construction protection plan and the archaeological resource, and also the state commissioning of correction, the SCOC, which we already have approval on. So, and these are just a few of them I listed here, but it's basically the contract is pretty clear that it's all authority having jurisdiction will be seeking permit as it relates to this project. Next slide, please. We have done several geotechnical investigation on site. The service performed to date were drilling and sampling of test boring to a depth of at least 120 feet below grade. We have done also installation of groundwater monitoring wells, performed laboratory testing on soil and rock sampling. We also performed geotechnical engineering analysis on the subsurface condition as it relates to the design and construction of the future building. We also concluded there's archaeological resource may exist on the project site. I believe these reports were already turned over to the folks on the community board. And we do have one of our subject expert, I believe it's Anthony, who could kind of review these slides in more detail. And Anthony, are you online?
Yes.
Okay, good.
So we drilled, there were 3 programs that were drilled, one in 2020, which was 18 soil borings that were drilled within the building and out on the exterior of the building. Prior to that, in 2018, there was another program that was performed. It was 3 borings. And in 2017, another 2 borings were drilled. The existing site consists of a layer of fill about 20 or 30 feet thick, followed by an organic layer in some areas that could be as much as 20 foot thick, followed by the native soils, which consist of sands and gravels, and the bedrock somewhere between 90 and 100 feet below ground. The groundwater varies between elevation 0 and -2, which is about 12 to 14 feet below ground surface. Of the 18 borings that were drilled, they were drilled inside the building. They used low clearance equipment to get in there. It was a difficult time drilling. They core through the slabs at the basement, which were about, and then they hand dug about 6 feet, and then they started drilling the borings. Next screen. So this is the first screen was the geotechnical borings. The second screen right? This one here is the archaeological borings that were performed. This is pretty much the soil profile. As you can see, the surface is fill material that was placed prior to construction of the building. And then there's a soft layer that's part of the collection pond deposit that was filled over. And then the natural sands below that with bedrock. Again, about 80 to 90 feet down below ground surface.
As it relates to the archaeological investigation, to date, we have monitored and documented all utility trenches and geotechnical boring work, which was performed on site in consultation with LPC. Under the dismantle contract, we have very limited excavation work, and we will continue to monitor and document our findings in consultation with LPC. Under the new facility, which includes the excavation of the site, a phase 1 archaeological survey is required by the design builder for the future facility. We already performed a phase 1A archaeological study, which was done. And in addition, under the dismantle contract, the design builder will be performing a construction protection plan and a historic American building survey as well, which is part of the dismantle contract. We also have Liz on the line who could add a little more to the archaeological slide here. Liz, are you online?
Yeah, I'm here. See if my camera will work. It is. Yep, so the 1A background research has already been done. We did some monitoring of the geotechnical borings and did find that there was some peat preserved in between the deep fill and the natural geological strata. And LPC would like additional testing or monitoring of that during the construction phase, particularly because of the depth of the fill and potential issues with the water table.
Thank you, Liz. Regarding the environmental investigation, we have done a phase 1 environmental site assessment, which was done by TRC, I believe, in 2020. The phase 1 identified possible recognized environmental concern. As a result, we had done a phase 2 site investigation, which were conducted, I believe, in 2021. Soil sample were collected for laboratory analysis. Based on the soil sample test result, we do not anticipate the soil condition at this point is expected to be non-hazardous material. We also did 7 borings and no indication of contamination were identified during the phase 2 environmental site investigation. I would add that the facility design builder is also responsible for site validation. And during the construction phase, we will need to submit to the DEP for remediation action plan based on their findings. Next slide. I think this is Rich.
So during our scope validation period that we are undergoing for the environmental concerns in the towers and the courthouse make-ready space, on the left-hand side of your screen is the confirmed asbestos-containing material that was found in the courthouse make-ready spaces. These are the materials that, if we encounter them throughout the renovation process, will be abated. On the right, we have a preliminary result back. These are materials that were indicated to be confirmed asbestos-containing materials in the building. The quantities and exact locations of everywhere it may exist is still being ongoing, and that report will be finalized in the next upcoming month or so. Just one last note on that, there will be an air monitor that's been decided by the DDC, Air Tech Environmental. They're an independent consultant that will be on site during all abatement procedures. So as we said, part of the environmental remediation plan, work that is ready to begin is the abatement of the courthouse make-ready spaces. That will begin by the end of the month. And the plans being finalized are the oil tank removal plans on White Street, as well as the abatement removal plans for the north and south tower. Community air monitoring plan. We are finalizing our contract right now with our independent consultant to perform the noise, dust, and vibration monitoring. This company will be installing the monitors around the perimeter of the job site in order to capture the data and relay it back to us in real time. These monitors will be conducted with varying levels of alerts. What that means is there will be several stages. So if you have 25% towards an action level, 50%, 75%, et cetera, which will be determined by the consultant to give us alerts. And these alerts will trigger us to, be alert that there is some readings being detected and that we can take the appropriate measures to reduce and maintain our effects, not on the neighborhood. We will be providing quarterly reports via the neighborhood notification list and program website. And community members, if they have any questions, can visit the CCL, and then our team will be able to provide a response. Within the next month through the CCL, the neighboring property owners will be contacted to set up times for inspection and documentation of their properties. During this inspection and documentation, we'll determine the exact location and number of monitors that will be determined to be needed to provide the appropriate amount of monitoring for the community. There was a lot of questions regarding our health and safety plan, which is in its final phases of review. This is the objectives and the strategies of our health and safety plan. So it goes without saying, our goal is to have zero work-related injuries, illnesses, or incidents. We want to make sure we protect the private properties and workers on and around the project and the public. We want to protect the properties, roadways, and underground subway tunnels and vaults. We want to prevent adverse impacts to the environment, make sure all our permits are in a timely manner so that everything flows smoothly, deliver safe facilities to operate, staff the project with fully trained, certified personnel, provide timely and accurate reporting, and protect the work from any damages. So the strategy behind all of this is to build a strong foundation by adhering to the safety requirements of the project, developing project-specific site safety plan, which this is the first page of that document, create well-developed job hazard analysis. So every task will have a plan ahead of it before it's executed, and that'll be gone over with all members of the team performing that work, making sure that everyone has the proper training, having daily job safety briefings, and recognize, minimize, and eliminate job site and public hazards through planning, inspection, verification, and then correcting any actions that may need to be. Our health and safety plan has an evacuation route to go to a muster point if there is ever any incident on the job site, and that is the northeast corner of Center and Walker. We also have mapped out the nearest hospitals and urgent cares, depending on any incidents that may occur, that everyone on site knows the proper locations to go to in an emergency. Up next, construction waste management. It has come up, I've been asked how many trucks per day, how many loads, and what kind of debris quantities we will be generating. This chart here shows the concrete, masonry, C&D, and metals that are anticipated to be generated through this project, totaling the 1,550 loads for concrete, 1,100 for masonry, 61 for C&D, and 114 for metals. This project is over 12 months, the dismantlement portion. That averages to 10 loads per day. The percentage of materials that will be recycled will exceed the 75% requirement by weight. So the dismantlement is not required to our, part of the LEAD program, but we are tracking all of our waste so that it can be understood that anything that is reused and recycled on this project can help towards the new building's gold certification. Next slide. As we talked earlier, Anil went over various permits that we are going for. As you can see here, it's not one global dismantlement permit that we'll be getting. It is multiple phases of permitting. Everything you see here highlighted in green, which is the gymnasium area of the North Tower, the White Street Bridge and entrance podium, the Sallyport construction, and the make-ready space in the courthouse will be occurring on phase 1. Phase 2 will be the towers. So just so everyone understands, there are several phases to the dismantlement. It's not that one permit covers all of the dismantlement. Traffic mitigation. So as you can see here, in June 18, these are the traffic counts that were performed on the intersections of Walker and Center, as well as Walker and Baxter, indicating the vehicles that currently travel up and down the blocks on the west and east side of the property. Our traffic mitigation plan will, coordinating with our traffic mitigation plan, deliveries would primarily be dispersed evenly throughout the day. We don't want to have all our trucks show up at once. We want to have them spaced out so as that nothing queues through the neighborhood. The goal is to have everything pull in as needed and pull into White Street, which has been demapped and off of the city streets. As you can see here, for an example, to understand the data that you're looking at, northbound on Center, peaks are at 570 vehicles per hour. That's shown right here. You have 510 in the morning and 60 in the morning going straight and making right-hand turns. And then in the afternoon, you have 450 vehicles midday. An average of 10 loads per day equals roughly 1.25 loads per hour, which is roughly a 0.22% increase in the morning or a 28% increase midday. And these percentages are negligible as it affects the traffic increases through the neighborhood.
Richard, this is Bevin. It's a 0.28 increase.
0.28. I'm sorry. Thank you, Bevin. Next slide. I guess at this point we open it up for questions and answers, and we have our teams here to answer them.
Great, thank you all. We got through a lot of content, and I think in that 20 to 30-minute mark. So appreciate the team getting through all of it. So everybody, I know that's a lot of technical content. You know, we're trying to balance being responsive and providing the information that was asked for, and also, you know, trying to make it something that we can present in 20 to 30 minutes and be digestible. So we are, of course, happy to go back to any of those slides if you'd like further explanation. Yeah, open it for questions.
I think we will definitely do that. I think it would be best when people have questions. Ideally, if they could, they wrote down the slide number, but I can imagine that many might not have. I'm going to call on people with hands up. I've seen some hands go up and hands go down, so I'm just going to ask you guys to put your hands back up. Can you go back to page 22 for me for community engagement and transparency?
22? No.
I think it was 22. No.
Oh, for the monitoring reports, perhaps? Okay. There you go.
So, as you well know, the engagement and transparency has been a little underwhelming for the community board and the public. And one of the questions that I have about this, we are working with the community air monitoring plan on the east side, and we get far more than quarterly results. We actually get monthly reporting. And it says community members should submit questions or concerns and the team will provide a response. Can you tell me what the community can expect in terms of response times? Is the community looking to get hoping that we will get a response within a day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 6 days? Or is it within a quarter? That is an important understanding if engagement is fair.
Definitely not within a quarter. That would certainly defeat the purpose of answering or asking questions in between the quarterly monitoring reports. I also can't tell you that it would necessarily be within a day. It does take us a little bit of time, not just to get the answer to the question. I think it also depends on what that question is, but not just to get the answer to the question, but also just make sure we've vetted it and gotten it back to our CCL and gotten it back out. So if it's a question of, you know, someone's walking down the street, they saw something, heard something, they have a question about it, I think we can aim to get a response back out as quickly as possible. I'm a little wary of giving a definitive time frame because it might vary question by question. If I say, you know, we'll try to do it in a week, and then there's a question that takes a little bit longer just to vet, you know, if that puts
Lauren, I appreciate what you're telling me, but I would like some kind of commitment by the team that even if it's a complicated one, that whatever partial and to engage with the community is able to be done. That's one of the largest things here. And it has taken longer than a quarter to get answers from the city. So it may have sounded like a glib comment, but it's really not. And I can't understand any particular point that a constituent who sent a question couldn't get an email within a week's turnaround time, even if it says, we've received your email, it will take us a little bit longer to respond to it, but your question, your comments are important to us. So I ask you to find something that you can live with that will not cause further angst to the community, to ensure that when we're talking about responses, we're talking about something that's in the realm of reasonableness.
Absolutely. And yes, yes, everyone should be getting a response very, very quickly. I think within a couple of days at minimum, to say at least that we have acknowledged, we have received your response. We are working on that. And I think that we've been doing a pretty good track record of that recently. Again, it's been a bit of a change with the outreach team, but I know that Pauline Chan has been relaying questions to us, and we have been copied on emails where she does respond back to the question asker within a day to say, we've gotten your question, I've relayed it to the team, we will get back to you as soon as possible.
And just know that there's a standard that's been set that there is a possibility for daily reporting, which we know and we have seen within our community. So know that that's where I'm going from immediate to longer term. I'm going to call in order that I saw the hands go up, so I apologize if I missed you. Alice Blank, who's our chair of environmental, has asked to allow some of the committee members to go first. So she has a large list of questions, as I'm sure you may expect. But so we're going to go Rosa and Justine first, and then I did see Vera's hand up. I don't know where it went, but I'll get to Vera third unless she sends me a note saying she doesn't need to. Nope, there she is. Okay. So Rosa, Justine, Vera.
Thank you. So being relatively new to this topic, I don't understand why this is being rushed. So I'm hoping somebody can explain that to me. I also don't understand why, given what seems to be a lot of stuff up in the air about the new building, and I'm guessing that's also why you're going the design build route, you're rushing to the demolition when you don't even have a design for the new building yet, which to me is sort of problematic, because then that means that if you don't have the design yet and you haven't even determined how big a facility you're going to build, then the neighborhood could be left in the lurch with, a demolished building and then empty lot for, who knows how long. And then, eventually we're, forced to deal with a new building because you demolished the one that was there. And so I guess I'm wondering if someone can explain to me why this is all necessary if we don't even have a definite plan, because it feels like it's pretty traumatizing to the neighborhood and possibly unnecessary. So it feels like you guys are basically just like rushing really, really fast to implement something so that the community has no choice but to accept whatever comes down the pipe. And we as a community are saying, well, that makes no sense. And that's basically community abuse. And that until you present us with a plan, a real plan that we agree with, then, we'd rather you just don't do this. And who knows, maybe we'll do like a human chain around the whole building. I don't know. But it seems a little crazy that you guys are just rushing forward with something that everybody is speaking up against. I really don't understand it. Again, new to the whole topic, but I would love it if someone could explain that to me.
Thank you, Rosa.
Thank you.
And I will note, although Rosa is a fairly new board member, she lives in the community and has for a long time. So you can imagine what we feel if she, who is applied to a community board, doesn't know the process, didn't feel it. It's not been widely engaged and transparent. So just supporting that ask. Thank you, Rosa.
Understood. And Rosa, thank you for your questions. I heard there's I think a few different questions kind of embedded within that. So I'm going to try to attempt to tease them apart a little bit. And I'm going to be relying on my colleague Sasha and I think Nina to help answer some of these. So first of all, to the question of why is the schedule what it is? Again, I flipped back to our schedule slide. As Diana kind of brought up in her introduction, to this meeting. DDC has been tasked with the construction, with the dismantlement and construction of the new facility. And the technical team that's here and that was presenting the content tonight isn't really speaking to the broader policy decisions of why the borough-based jails program is happening, but I think Sasha can help with answering some of those questions. However, the schedule that you're seeing in terms of the timeline for dismantlement and construction of the new facility is reflective of the city's overall commitment to closing Rikers by 2027. And what we're doing here, what we're laying out as far as the construction timeline, is reflective of meeting our mandate to meet that goal that is set by the city. I think you also said in your question of, if we don't see the plans yet, how do we know, like, you know, you could be dismantling this building and we have no idea how big the new facility is going to be. While the design is not 100% set yet, and that is going to be developed further and detailed out by the design build team once they're brought on, there are parameters that have been determined during the ULURP process that do actually restrict the overall size and final size and massing of the building. So it's not something that can be infinitely big, that the size is already constrained and restricted. So with that, I want to see if Sasha can speak first to the overall sort of goals and policy question, and then maybe Nina, if you want to clarify what I just said about the size constraints on the final facility,
Sure.
that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah, so I just want to echo what Lauren just said, that the city has made a commitment to closing Rikers Island by 2027. And this is a commitment that both the previous administration and the new administration stand behind. I don't know if anyone has had the opportunity to go to Rikers Island, but I think any direct experience there makes it very clear that those facilities are not fit for particularly for people to live or work there. And in order to do so, we need to build the borough-based jail system. We are also we are bound to this timeline by a number of different laws. We are bound by the Renewable Rikers Act that the City Council passed that transfers the ownership of Rikers Island to the Department of Citywide Administrative Services, DCAS, on August 31st, 2027. And we are also bound by the Rikers Island Public Place ULURP application, which designates Rikers Island as a public place that prohibits the incarceration of people on Rikers Island after August 31st, 2027 as well.
You know, I can add just a little bit, I think, to what Sasha and Lauren said to help clarify. Right now, the dismantle contractor has been given a notice to proceed. If you look at the light gray bar that says dismantle, you can see that it's about an 18-month period for them to get their plans and to start the dismantle and then to do the completion. In order for us to get the Rikers closed in 2027, we're scheduled to start the facility design the beginning of 2023. Currently, we have an RFP that was released to design build, and we are working with design builders on the requirements for the building. As Lauren said, there is a prescribed height of 295 feet per the ULURP. The setbacks are prescribed by ULURP. The maximum size of the building is prescribed by the ULURP, and they need time to design. And so there is actually an overlap between when the building will be dismantled and the construction starts. So that is the period of time that's needed. Now, once we do give an NTP the beginning of 2023 to the design builder to really to do their design, there will be a whole series, much like we're doing now, of community board meetings where we'll be showing you the design as it gets developed and getting your input. So it won't just be, you know, presented to you and say, this is it. We will be coming back to the community board at regular intervals to review the design with you.
But it doesn't honestly seem like our input is being inputted, to be honest, because everything I've heard from
Rosa.
every single meeting that I've attended.
Rosa,
Yeah, I know.
I gotta cut you off. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Justine, Vera, and remember, everybody, please make sure we stick to not repeating others' questions.
Yep, nope, I'm not repeating the other questions. Thank you. I want to say thank you for the presentation. It's been detailed and thorough, but I have to say, I fear you're missing the point. What we've been telling you, Community Board 1, the Chinatown community has been saying since day one, is that we don't want you to tear down these buildings and construct a new, larger building. If anything, because Rikers does need to be closed. It is not a safe place to live as the prisoners are or work. If anything, we want you to rehab the existing jail. Save the $11 billion that you're going to spend on this project and use that money to pay for the mental health services, supportive housing, and other programs that prevent crime instead of reacting to it after the fact. Enlightened policies like these would obviate the need for a larger jail. Stopping what you're doing now and listening to what Community Board 1 is asking you to do and rehabbing the current facility would offload some of the burden on Rikers and move this along well before 2027. And I'm going to tell you this again too. Throughout this whole process, you have not consulted meaningfully with the community, and you've never indicated how we can stop the project, slow it down, or even modify it in the slightest. So my question is, have you read our resolutions calling for a stop to this? And what do you plan? What is your response to that? Thank you.
We are aware of the resolutions calling for the stop to this. I think as has been stated previous in this conversation, there isn't anyone on this team at the moment who has the power to actually stop this program.
Okay, moving on. Vera, you're next.
Yeah, I heard the reason from, I think it was Sasha, as to why the alternative is not being explored, and I'm not satisfied. You're building you're building a facility that has 886 beds right now, the current facility 838, and you're saying that it needs to be larger because you have to put all this programming in. Well, why can't we seek other areas or other buildings that the city owns or even the state owns to put this available programming and save the existing facilities? Why is that not being explored?
I can address that to the best of my knowledge. As I'm sure you can imagine, it's quite difficult to transport people in custody. There is a huge amount of security and time and effort that goes into it, including incredible, it's very staff intensive. And for us to be transporting people to their programs, right now on Rikers, there are many issues with transporting people to their programs within the same facility, let alone transporting them somewhere outside of their facility. And the whole fundamental reason we are doing this is to provide people in custody with better access to programming. And that simply just wouldn't work. The current facilities are mostly cell blocks around a very, very small and pretty sterile day room. And there just isn't the square footage to allow for sufficient program space within the existing walls of MDC.
Yeah, I don't find that a satisfactory answer, Sasha. I think we can think of other ways to be able to fulfill the needs that you describe. Tammy, can I just ask another question? I want to know, before it was mentioned to me before that conversations were ongoing with Chungpak and that adequate protections were being made for the 88 plus seniors who are living right next door to the demolition. I note that you're putting in roof protection, and I think that requires an access agreement. Have you, has Chungpak signed an access agreement with you yet?
Lauren, you want me to take that?
No, I was going to pass it off to you.
Okay, so we have already reached out to Charlie at Chungpak, and we are in the discussion of reviewing a draft agreement as we speak.
Okay, and so you would not be able to proceed with roof protection and hence dismantling or demolition, which is what it really is, until you have an access agreement with Chungpak. Is that correct?
That is currently under review right now. So I would say we are looking at that specific question right now, which is currently under review by legal.
And is there a specific reason that it is not being is there a difficulty of some sort, or what is the reason as to why this access agreement is not being agreed to by Chungpak, if it is not?
We provided a draft. Charlie provided some feedback, and we're reviewing his comment right now. That's where it is.
Okay, I would like to know more specifics as to that. Thanks, Tammy.
Vera, we can put it on the list for follow-up. Thanks. I'm going to lower your hand. If you have another question, again, you raise it to come back through. We're going to go to Alice Blank before we recognize anybody again. So everybody gets to speak once. go through the members of the public, and then we're going to come back through.
I guess my first question is, of course, thanks. I realize you've inherited quite a gargantuan situation here. And so thank you for finally responding. But to take a meeting like this and have a 20-minute presentation that is looking at the entire project from demolition to construction through environmental concerns that we've never seen before is really asking the impossible of the community to respond in this one meeting. So I'm first going to ask if you will be able to come back in short order, perhaps to the Environmental Protection Committee, to address, more fundamentally some of the questions in more detail. So that's question one. I'm hoping the answer will be yes. Well, not getting an answer yet, but I'm going to.
Oh, I thought you were continuing to ask the question.
Yes,
I was
yeah,
waiting for you
maybe. I'm assuming that's
being respectful, Alice.
Yeah, thank you. I have many questions that I prepared in the few documents we were given, like the RFP and the environmental document from TRC, but you've brought up so many other issues that, we asked for in such kind of, with all due respect, summarized ways. So, one that I know this community and Community Board 3 and our former Manhattan Borough President and many reasonable folk, including professional architects and engineers, always are asking the same question, is looking at alternatives besides the very, questionable idea of taking down two buildings, one of which is a state and national potential registered and landmark. So in that question, I guess, I would ask that the community gets to see a much more detailed understanding of these alternatives. If indeed they were done, I would ask that we get to see them and better understand why they are not something that's workable. I think it's something that really should be looked at much more carefully. And I think we're all not yet convinced that that is the case, or if one building were to go down and not two, et cetera. And that was really never presented to us. So, that small thing you gave us, I'm just not sure is adequate. So that would be another ask, and I'm not sure it's a question that obviously can be answered. A question I do have is, you absolutely well know that in 1986, the Tombs building, that's the South building at 124, I guess that is, White Street, and the Urbane building that was built in 1993. These buildings were, in the case of the old 1938 building was restored in 1986. It's not ancient history. And at the time, it was considered state of the art. In fact, people were on record in the New York Times of being very upset that it was too nice a building. And the Urbane Art building, considered an extension to the Tombs, was also considered state of the art. So my question is, as an architect, I'm fascinated that this community believes that somehow, I mean, your community, VDC, DOC, all those folks, that somehow architecture is going to solve the problem. What is it about building a building that is 2.5 times the size of the buildings that are there, that were, and I quote, state of the art at the time, which is only in 1993, I think the Urbane building was finished. Why is this building somehow going to solve that problems of justice reform in Manhattan?
Okay, that's the list of questions?
Oh, no, I have many others, but I don't know how many I can ask. I haven't even, there's many on environmental, but that's just like that's a follow-up to I thought Rose's really good presentation as to why, but I'm very confused as to, just where the agencies are coming from on that question. Why is it that, and you don't even have plans of what this looks like or what this is going to entail. And I guess it's a question that needs to be answered.
Okay, well, I was taking some notes while you were talking, so I'm going to attempt to go back through those in the order that they were asked. If I misphrase something, please feel free to correct me, or if we're missing something, let me know. So I think the first question was acknowledging that this is a lot of information that the team shared quickly in a 20 to 30-minute presentation. It's a bit to digest, and whether we will be able to come back again to answer more questions in more detail. I think what might be the best way forward, Alice, is if, like you did last time, if the community board could prepare a list of what those questions are, so that we can figure out what the best way to respond is I'm not sure if another presentation similar to this one, where it's a lot of technical information to share in a short time period to be mindful and respectful of everyone's time and the board's time, is the best format. Again, we're trying to focus the conversation tonight on a lot of these environmental issues and questions, and understandably, given past frustrations, you know, the community still wants to ask questions more about broader policy issues, et cetera. So why don't we, I mean, we've sent over this presentation today. Once you've had a time to chance, or had time and taken a chance to digest it a little bit further, if you could prepare what those questions are that you're still looking for, we can figure out what the best format is to answer those. As far as questions about the alternatives and why are we just, sorry, I'm going to misphrase this again, but why do we think that architecture could solve the problem, or how did we come to this decision? I am going to rely once more on Sasha Ginsberg from DOC, if you could help just kind of address a little bit more again the rationale behind why we're doing this program and incorporating this new facility.
Well, yeah, let me be specific. I'm asking why the two buildings that came before it, one built in 1990 and one renovated in 1986, considered at the time state of the art, which are now considered no good, not able to accommodate the needs of detainees, unfair, unfit. Why now, not that many years later, this particular proposal, which none of us have seen, at over close to $2 billion, is something we should be buying into? That's really specifically, what is it about this building, this new gargantuan building in this neighborhood, that's going to solve the problems that the other two buildings did not? That's the specific question.
So I'm obviously not going to be able to give you a satisfactory answer to that question, as I'm sure you expect. One of the things I can say, and I think I'm happy to follow up with more written information about this, is how we are envisioning and programming these buildings is radically different than how the current MDC was programmed. I was not alive when those buildings were built, and so I was not a part nor aware of any of those conversations that led to the physical buildings as they are today. I can just tell you from having spent quite a bit of time in the existing jails, how much better these facilities are going to be. We can go through a square footage by square footage breakdown, talk about materiality. I'm really happy to have that conversation. But I think, as we all know, jail, as I think the DA aptly said earlier, jail is only a very small aspect of the criminal justice system. At its core, the borough-based jails plan is a decarceration plan. We are dramatically limiting New York City's ability to incarcerate. We currently have just over 11,000 jail beds in New York City. And with this plan, we will have housing for just 3,300 people, which will require everyone in the criminal justice system and everyone in the city to rethink the notion and the use of incarceration. And so I am the first to acknowledge that jail is only one aspect of a much larger plan and a much larger issue that affects everyone in New York City. I don't know if Nina wants to speak at all to the specific architecture and the difference in the buildings, but
I mean, there have been in the last 30 years changes in codes, changes in philosophy on direct supervision of people in custody, providing for a more humane environment versus an indirect, where the custody people are kind of up in a booth looking out on the jail cells, about sight lines and engaging people that are in custody into programs for restorative justice. So there really has been a transformation in the way jails are designed in the last 30 years, as well as the ADA, the handicap accessibility codes have changed. These facilities that we've spent time in, they don't meet the latest ADA codes, and there have been significant issues there. The size of the windows and the size of the openings for the people that are in custody to be able to see, there's been all kinds of studies in years about being able to see daylight and being able to see the sky, and larger windows. So there are a lot of kind of new innovations and ways of treating people that are in custody in a much more humane way. And if you treat them in a more humane way, then they will act in a more humane way, and the rate of recidivism goes down.
Right, but it has, and allow me to say, I think I can be pretty confident in saying this, it has absolutely nothing to do with the architecture. And I would ask, has the, and I would ask very specifically, has vertical jail at 30 plus stories, closer to probably 35, somewhere in the history of jail construction indicated the things you've just described? Is there an example that you're using that as a vertical skyscraper jail that is an example of these qualities? In addition to obvious points like, ATA and larger windows.
We can provide you some historical data on that.
There are skyscraper jails. There are 30 and 40-story jails that are considered good.
These are not, these are 15-story buildings, not 30, but we can provide some data on jails around the country that are doing this well.
So this building is only a 15-story jail, but it's 295 feet high. Is that correct? Or 340 feet high, I think it was with the.
It's 295 feet high.
I thought there was additional mechanical or something.
There are some mezzanine levels within the housing units, and the floor-to-floor heights are different than in a traditional office building. So
well, it'll be great to see those sectional plans you're describing that supposedly aren't available, but that are obviously available because you're referring to them. So it would really be lovely if somebody could start to share some of this information to us all. But in any case, my last question on the architecture, and then I'll just quickly move on to just two other points of many that I have. But did you ever meet with Urbane or Grusin Partners, the two architectural firms who built the respective jails at the site?
We have met with Urbane a number of times and walked the sites with them a number of times. They are working on some of our other projects in Queens, and we have discussed that with them.
And what about Grusin on the Tombs building, the South building?
I'm not familiar.
Okay.
I don't.
And then have you met or spoken with or are aware of, I assume, Elizabeth Glazers, who was the former director of the mayor's office of criminal justice, who was, of course, an author and an architect behind the closing of Rikers report. Her new report that she co-authored with Jacobson on advocating for a much smaller jail and a very different set of criteria to consider now. And I think it was published in September of this past year. Are you aware of that report? I think
so.
Yeah. How is that being ingested into this?
I worked directly for Liz for many years and have met with her since she has left the mayor's office and published this report. And I think it was my reading of the report that actually a lot of the core values of what are going into the facilities actually remained the same, but she really did advocate for a dramatic shrinking of the system. As I'm sure you are aware, no one on this call and no one at DOC controls who ends up in our jails. We only provide for the care and custody of those who are admitted. And so that requires a massive shift in the entire criminal justice system. The DA plays a huge role in that. The courts play a huge role in that. We currently have just under 5,600 people on Rikers Island. And so getting to a population of 3,300, we believe is still feasible. However, it is going to be a massive lift across the criminal justice system. And we hope and expect our partners to work with us. And we are so willing to have that conversation when we can get to a prediction that we feel we are confident in that can get us to 2,200 beds.
Well, I think she was very clear, as was Justice Littman, when he published the Littman Commission report and saw what was happening, that smaller, fair, and just, and more humane, this building is not. And so, and yes, as you point out, she is advocating for smaller buildings. And one of her very, I thought, thoughtful suggestions was the use of the state-owned buildings. I think maybe it's Lincoln and in Chelsea, the Harlem and the Chelsea buildings. Is that something that's been considered at all? And also Gail Brewer's suggestion of using 139 Center Street across the street or 2 Howard Street as potential spaces for other parts of the programming of this new understanding of, a more just jail.
I know
So
this was explored during the previous administration, and the state was unwilling to provide any of those spaces. They are fully under state control still, and we have not heard otherwise from the state, to my knowledge.
well, it certainly seems like there's a lot of information here that hasn't yet been fully vetted. There's a lot of possibility and alternative seeking. I'm really hopeful, and I know this is not in your hands, that this new administration can really take a minute before you bring down two buildings, one of which is a criminal building to bring down as part of our, the criminal justice court building, and really reflect on the possibilities here, authored by the very person who really believes and was, instrumental in writing the Rikers report. So anyway, I'm going to leave it. There's a million sort of more
I have a million
environmental.
other
I know,
Alice,
and I'm done. I'm sorry. And I very much thank you, Tammy. I went well over, and I was doing it on behalf of my committee. I took their time. Thank you.
Yes. So we're going to move to, thank you, Alice. We're going to move to members of the public. We're going to go to Regina, Jonathan Hollander, and then Nancy Kong. And then I have three more after that.
Tammy, if I may, I would also just like to respectfully remind everyone that we did prepare this presentation intending to focus on environmental questions that the board asked and information that was asked about. And we have a number of people here that we've brought who are experts in geotechnical investigations, the soil reports, the archaeological studies that we've done. And so I'd like to ask everyone, if you do have questions about the content that we had prepared for this presentation tonight, we do encourage you to use this time, this opportunity while we have these folks here to ask those questions. Thank you.
I'm going to come back to you because I do have questions on that, but I'm waiting to the end because we do let everybody go round robin first. So Regina, you're in the public, you're in the attendee section. You will be unmuted first.
This is my first time here. My grandma was a resident of Chongpak. I spent many of my childhood years staying over and having lots of memories in the neighborhood. Unfortunately, I only found out a month ago when I was in Chinatown for her funeral. I'm representing the residents of Chongpak to champion other grandparents. There's two major concerns here. There's a lack of community engagement and broader engagement because this isn't just a District 1 or a community board issue, but it's really a Manhattan one, right? Why am I finding it out now? This is a jail for Manhattan. The other aspect of it is whatever we're seeing that is bad in terms of lack of community engagement, as us English-speaking people, it is even worse for the Chinese community in Chinatown. So what is the name of the person or persons that will act as a primary liaison with the Chinese community in Chinatown? The other question is, how will the residents of Chongpak be taken care of with sound pollution, vibrations, disruptions, as the dismantling is happening and it's going to be over the course of 5 years? My last one comment is that while I don't disagree with the principles of rehabilitation and trying new ways of building jails, my experience as an engineer has actually proven me that a vision needs plans or else it leads to all sorts of problems. Programming needs detailing. I don't see those either. And basically this detailing, these plans are what allows us to keep you accountable. And without it, it just doesn't work. If we can just take a page from Amazon, for example, the design principle is working backwards. You have a plan and you just come back and figure out how to make it actually work. We have a vision for what it is. You work backwards from there, not you have a vision and you work towards it. So that's what I'm going to say.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to address your first question about community engagement, specifically for the Chinese-speaking population. So first of all, as has been stated previously tonight, we can't speak to the engagement efforts that have been done in the past. However, we do have a very proactive team that has come on board recently, and we are working very much to continue and improve our outreach and engagement. We did hold a briefing for stakeholders in Chinatown a couple of weeks ago. I'm forgetting the date off the top of my head. Perhaps Xiaomin Zhao from DDC can speak to that. We also then followed that up with a briefing specifically for the Chinese press. I would also like to note that our CCL, our Community Construction Liaison, who has a storefront at 110 Walker Street, which is 1 block from the construction site, is multilingual. She speaks English, Cantonese, and Mandarin, and she has been actively doing outreach door to door in the neighborhood to make sure that we are extending our efforts throughout the entire community. So we hear you loud and clear, really appreciate your comments, and we are putting our best foot forward to improve the outreach throughout the entire community, not just to the community board. Xiaomin, if there's anything you would like to add to that comment, I'd invite you to unmute now, and otherwise we'll hand it off to Anil to speak to the coordination with Chongpak.
Yes, and then I'm also fluent in Chinese, and we work very closely with CCL to engage with Chinatown communities because we know they have a language issue, and then they are very busy. So we try to be approach to them. We went to door. Thank you.
Anil, yeah, here.
I think that answered both those questions, and I appreciate that. Regina, we're putting you back on mute, and we're moving on to the next person, who I think was Nancy Kong, and then Jonathan Highland.
Thanks very much, Tammy, and I'll try to keep this brief. Lauren, Sasha, I really appreciate your position and your directive, but I just really wish we could be in a position where you're working with the community to come up with a solution. And I get the people who made the policies are not here, but if you can send them a message. For now, can you confirm that your directive is from Mayor Adams and that is to proceed as planned? For me, there's no acknowledgement from his campaign promises to commit to where he committed to review and reassess. I've heard that he's been meeting with Councilmember Marte. Is there any progress in those discussions? And that's number one. Alternatives. I appreciate you reiterating the reasons why the alternatives won't work, but you haven't addressed that your proposal does not actually follow the Lippman Commission, which calls for smaller community-based jails. And I can actually answer that question. There is no other jail, world-class jail that you all had reviewed earlier that are 30, 40 stories high. That just is not a safe proposal. We've raised concerns that have been validated, as Alice said, by your former colleague, the Deputy Director for MOCJ. Liz Glazier has said that the fundamental assumptions don't hold. Liz calls on the mayor to consider smaller facilities, including Bayville, Edgecombe, Lincoln, to increase the number of beds. She pointed out that training is 16 weeks here versus in the other countries where you studied, it's 2 years. She pointed out that the design-build process limits competition and creativity when we actually need it the most. She specifically states that the current plan will result in a decentralized Rikers if no changes are made. Isn't that what we're all trying to prevent? This is $2.6 million per bed. I ask that you really go back and reconsider, review Lippman Commission as well as Liz Glazier's report. My last request, since you are seemingly to move forward without other consideration, can you add monitors for Columbus Park and at Chatham Towers? I am with Park Row Alliance, and I live at Chatham Towers, which is literally across the street from the district attorney. I feel you really should put monitors, air, noise, as well as traffic. At least we're 1 block away. So I ask that you add our address to your monitoring system. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's actually a good ask, Lauren, especially with the environmental crew here. You've heard many people speak out about Columbus Park. It is used from birth to extraordinary seniors. And with the closing of so much open space that we have in the city, it's vital that that park have quality monitoring. Is that something that your team can commit to?
Well, I'll jump in on this one, Lauren.
Thanks, Rich.
We are developing the plan now to put them at the perimeters of the job sites, which would in fact protect those areas. So if something exits the perimeter of the job site or enters a monitor that is placed in a neighboring property, if it's between your property and the property that is being dismantled, that monitor is protecting.
What we're asking for is for a monitor a little further out, based on the way the winds and the traffic and everything else goes, to make sure that we are indeed protecting the largest amount of public realm space, which is, just across the street, a little bit to the right in the back off Baxter. It is one of the most heavily used public spaces in the city.
Yes, I
cannot
went and traveled that, I went and visited the park myself, I'm aware.
Okay.
And I will take that into consideration as we're building our plan for monitor locations to see if there is any viable locations that we can utilize to do that.
Right.
I can't make any guarantees, but I will make one that is in a vicinity to protect it. Where exactly, I don't know if it'll be in the middle of the park, but we will find one that will be able to be installed to protect that area.
Okay, thank you so much. So after Nancy was Jonathan Hollander. Jonathan, your mic is open.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. It's been elucidating. A couple of things. Stepping back and looking at a new mayor, a new DA, a new city council member, and our city council, our community board, all speaking against this plan. And yet, we're on a timeline that we're rushing through. Okay, that's one thing. Another thing is the mental health issue, which was raised with the DA, and he addressed that, and we all understand what a compelling problem it is. Then we're talking about programming for the incarcerated people. We have heard nothing about what programming can look like in a skyscraper jail. Nothing about that. And Alice put that point very, very clearly. Pardon me?
I believe this team does not have the questions to answer on programming. This team, as we started for the conversation to start with, is really here on environmental. If they have someone who can speak on environmental within programming within the environmental, I would.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I understand. So, I understand, Tammy. I've heard Sasha Ginsberg talk about programming and the need for this size of a building and this design of a building so that the programming can be addressed. But I don't hear anything about programming. I don't hear anything that convinces me that this is a humane way to keep people incarcerated. And I also want to just remind people about the fact that this building was emptied and 500 people were put in Rikers Island so that they will be there for the 5 years or 6 years, whatever it's going to take to move them back. So I'm sorry, I'm a community member. I've lived here for 40 years. I'm aware of what this environment is, and the democratic process is not happening. Okay, that's it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Jonathan, do you have anything else that you want to ask them for the team that's here based on the presentation?
No.
Thank you. Alrighty. After Jonathan came, oh gosh, I think it wasn't. I'll just Bill Bylowski. You're up next.
Hi, thank you. I'm here tonight representing the Walker Street Homeowners Association. We're the group between Cortland Alley and Lafayette Street. Thank you to all the professionals who've stayed up late tonight to stand up there like foot soldiers for the city in rank and file to intimidate in some ways maybe our community board who's working so hard, and I thank them at trying to get some sense into what's taking place. It's pretty obvious that a 295-foot tall building is not going to be possible to make a normative environment for the incarcerated there to be able to successfully initiate a program of restorative justice. What the city has done right now is chop this process up into little pieces that the community that wants to challenge the beginning thinking, who's never been listened to really in the entirety of this process, is still being stonewalled and being having this entire project rammed down our throat. And the people who need to be here aren't here tonight. I suggest that we need to have a meeting with the deputy mayor responsible for corrections. He needs to come and talk to this community now if we're going to talk about feedback having any meaning. Because the feedback we've seen so far go from the community back to this team has had very little response. We haven't seen the Sally Port improved much. We actually had, the community has said, well, we would consider it somewhere else. We'd rather you slide it around the corner. If you made that part of the design criteria, you could achieve it. And it would be imperative to we just have no reason to believe you're going to listen to us any further than you have. What I'd like to know now, given the reality that we're going to have to go through this next step, a couple of technical things. You're just capping, you're just going down to the slab, you're fracturing it so that you can drain water down into the neighborhood and into the water table. And you aren't actually going to get to the issue that the group, all these scientists and the engineers we have on the phone, we want to talk about, which is when we go to dig the hole for the next building. And how deep will that hole be? What kind of dewatering process can take place? This team probably can't talk about it because that's not in the scope of work that's being done right now. So why are you here? I feel badly. You're standing here as foot soldiers to jam this down our throat. Now let me get to the one thing you are here about, which is trucks. There's no way these trucks are going to be, that's not the way the process is going to work. We know it well. It's going to have more of a bell-shaped curve to the coming and going. You're going to ramp up. There are going to be periods of time where we're going to see a lot of trucks coming and going. Can you tell us anything about how the trucks are coming to the site? Are they coming out of the Holland Tunnel, coming to work down Walker Street, downshifting and taking a right to work their way? Where are the trucks coming from and where are they going? And I'll leave it at that for the moment. And can you get us the deputy mayor responsible for corrections? There's no point in talking.
Thank you, Bill. Let him answer the question for what he can. That's okay. We'll work on the other stuff, but let's get the questions answered on the transportation you're asking.
Rich, will you be able to speak? Thank you. You're there.
So I don't have the slide regarding the traffic routes as that wasn't part of today's presentation. However, in the past, we have presented to explain that the trucks will be entering via Center Street, traveling northbound into White Street, where they'll be loaded and unloaded, and then exiting onto White Street and heading north to Canal. Alternatively, which the community has made as their least desirable choice, is to come down Baxter Street southbound, making a right into White Street, and then exiting on White Street on Center and heading north back up to Canal.
And Rich, I know you said
Lauren, you're quick.
I know, and I think I saw a look of frustration on someone's face when you said we don't have the slides, but we do. We kept the whole presentation from last time in the appendix of this PowerPoint. So that slide is here and that slide is available and it's on screen, right? Oops, sorry. I just slipped tried to make it full screen and it jumped.
Can you address Bill's concerns about the bell curve of the traffic patterns, please?
There you go.
So his concern is that trucks may bell curve higher, and I guess in the middle of the day.
Yep, during the most frequent.
Running this project is to evenly space the trucks coming to the job site. Any trucks that all queue up are not efficient, are not moving material in the most effective manner, and therefore are not the most productive in moving material off the site. Having them evenly spaced is the most effective method and therefore the best for schedule for the project.
Okay. Bill, I think he answered your question on that. So, although I will say, if it doesn't meet that criteria and the community sees and is experiencing difficulties, what is the path in terms of communication and how quickly can you respond with change as needed?
So I would say the path is through the CCL office, right? That's where the community should go if they have any concerns about the project. And in terms of any changes, we will have to see what the complaints are and what's occurring.
Tammy, this is Lucian. Also, everyone's invited to reach out to me, the board office, CC me when reaching out to the CCL, and I'll make sure that we get a response, though I have full faith and confidence in Ms. Chan.
And Amy Chin, I'm sorry, I by accident put your hand down if you'll put it back up. Okay, Anna G, you will be next, Edward Kucha, and then Amy Chin.
And I live in Chatham Towers nearby. Now, the new structure won't be finished until 2027 at the earliest. So it seems to me that there is a delay in treating or rehab programs. And also regarding the possibility of renovating or expanding, what efforts were made to seek remodeling plans to remedy the limitations that you cited?
So unfortunately, I do apologize, but Sasha Ginsberg from the DOC had to step away. I think she was just got called away. So again, you know, I think we presented the information on the alternatives that were assessed and the reasons why the new facility cannot be accommodated by the existing facility.
But you didn't answer my question. What effort was even made to find a solution in terms of remodeling? I'm not just saying, oh, you know, just fit everything into that little space of a cell. I'm saying, you know, a remodeling. And also the 2018
Anna,
study. I'm sorry.
that question was asked already. Do you and they did not have the answers that they could provide at the moment with this presentation and promised to bring it back. Is there a new question that you might have that can be asked?
Yes. The 2018 traffic study did not consider the Sally Port on Center Street. Will that be taking up a lane on Center Street? So if so, will a new traffic study be done with that consideration in mind?
So we are performing future, current traffic counts. We are working on getting that set up so that we can provide you with updated traffic counts. We also have the Sallyport operations. The bus counts are not intended to change. It's expected to remain the same throughout the process. And the Sallyport is located on the current sidewalk, leaving the lanes open.
Oh, okay. So all the lanes will be open.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Amy, you're muted.
Thank you very much, and I apologize I was muted. That works. Let's do Amy Chin next. Amy, your mic is open. Yep, you're
Great.
good.
Thanks. I want to comment specifically tonight about the outreach. I feel that it has been really inadequate and in many ways inept. Last week, for example, we received the 72-hour notice about certain street closures for construction. And then within a day or two, we received notice that it was canceled. Walking around the area, I saw yellow signs from DOT saying the street would be closed. First of all, those signs were not in Chinese, they were all in English, and they were still up even after the advisory said that the work was going to be canceled. So it causes a lot of confusion for people in Chinatown. And then over and above that, to schedule this kind of work in the street closures is last weekend showed a real lack of sensitivity to our community. Last weekend was Super Saturday. It was during Chinese New Year. It was really, it's one of the busiest, most important weekends in Chinatown. And for example, this coming weekend, we have the Chinese New Year parade. I feel like the outreach that you're doing is basically saying, oh, hey, we're doing this. And it doesn't take into account what is important, what is happening in our community, how it affects our community. It basically is, you know, shouting out, okay, we're doing this, get ready, put on your hard hats or whatever, put in your earplugs. And it shows it's really inadequate. It is really insensitive to our community. And I feel like it is just characteristic of how this jail plan has been imposed on our community. And throughout all of the comments that I've heard during tonight's meeting, it is again the same characteristic. Hey, we're doing this. Oh, it's a new administration. Oh, tough luck, we're doing this. All of you who are on this call, who are getting paid to do this work, I want you to know, we spend our time here, we don't get paid. We spend our time here because we care about the community. We live here, we work here, and to see this utter disregard for our homes and our businesses and our neighborhood is truly disgusting. I'm done.
I do appreciate those comments. I do just want to point out, first of all, we apologize for the confusion. Work had been planned for the weekend. I apologize that we were not aware sooner about Super Saturday, but as soon as that was brought to our attention, that was the reason for the cancellation of the work and postponing that. It was out of respect for the community and wanting to stay out of the way of the festivities. We have since instituted new protocols on our team to make sure that we will be aware of all such community events further in advance so that we're not inadvertently scheduling work to interfere with any of that. So absolutely, we 100% hear you and appreciate those comments, and we're in agreement with you, and we are going to work to do better in the future. And so that was the reason for the switcheroo. Again, it was just out of respect for not wanting to interfere with those community activities.
Thank you. That is refreshing to hear. Hopefully that'll be a better path forward. All right, let's move on to our next speaker. I believe, Anna, I'm going to take your hand down because that was you just now. That brings us to Ed Kucha and then Jan Lee.
Hi, Tammy. Thank you. 3 points, and I'll try to keep it quick. First, this is actually to Regina. Regina, hi from Chung Pak. I'm also a Chung Pak commercial tenant. I've got to tell you that I've heard, Lauren, I think that was you that said this, you've got proactive teams and stakeholder meetings and all of that good stuff. But I'm sorry, I must call you out on this. That is not correct. My office is directly across the street from 110 Walker Street. I look at them. In fact, that's my second point. I watch them spend a whole day putting up signage. Really, a whole day to put up signage. If that's how you guys work, it's going to take a lot longer than 2 years to demolish this thing. But anyway, Regina, there's no community outreach. There's no proactive teams. There's no stakeholders. They're just doing whatever they want. So get your grandparents and the grannies and the grandpas over in Chung Pak ready. They're going to do whatever they want, and they don't give a damn about us. Lastly, to the environmental points. My office, as I've said many, many times, is at 121 Walker Street. I've been visited once, but let's talk about the environment. Can this group here put a monitor in my office and give me access that I can check to see what's going on and what poisons are leaching out into my air so that I can immediately inform this community board, who I want to thank over and over again for their support, and let them know what you people are doing to us. That'd be really helpful. That'd be great. Thank you very much.
Okay. Jan Lee and then John, because I don't know, did you have anything to add for Edward other than improved engagement?
Just that the storefront, the signage going up this week was an indication that our storefront is now open. Polly Chan will be on the ground, and so I think you'll be seeing a lot more of her throughout in the neighborhood.
I think it would have been good if the outreach and the setup were done long before the discussion of dismantle began, and that the community had an opportunity to really engage and understand what's going on. I think the problem is it's being set up simultaneously, and the timing is extraordinarily doing your team a disservice and the community the greatest disservice for transparency. Jan, you're on.
Thank you. I want to compliment all the previous speakers and, of course, Community Board 1, who is always watching out for our community. And I also want to talk about the fact that Sasha had mentioned that her agency is indeed in the responsibility of care and custody of the people who are detained. And that's ironic. That's ironic because we really should be talking about who is responsible for giving the okay to empty these 2 Chinatown jails, knowing, as Sasha has said, the horrific conditions at Rikers Island, the horrific conditions that people were enduring there at the peak of the pandemic. Who gave the okay? I'd like to have the name of who gave the okay to rush this through, to empty these jails in the middle of a pandemic, the result of which 15 people died. So I would like you to have the bravery, the foot soldiers who are coming here today, to tell us who's responsible for that. That's number one. Number two, I'd like to ask Anil, what happens if you do not get the satisfaction of Chung Pak to get the approvals that you need to even approach their building, enter onto their building, fasten the rooftop protections that were so nicely done in that antiseptic, obnoxious animation that you did, which has no bearing on reality. But what is the plan B that you have if you do not get the satisfaction of Chung Pak leadership? What are you going to do?
Well, Anil,
like the name of the plan.
Question. I want to see if someone from Mokje, in lieu of Sasha being here, could address the first point.
There has to have been a name responsible to say, now is the day that we start emptying out this jail and putting these people onto Rikers Island.
So let me just, you want me to respond to the second part?
Thanks, Anil. That would be great.
So we are working with Charlie right now to come to an agreement. As I mentioned before, we are reviewing his comments and we should be getting back to him shortly. So we anticipate we should be having an agreement.
That wasn't my question, Anil, and I think if you're at this point, you're doing a very bad job because you should have had those agreements in place already. You're talking about rolling in bulldozers in a few days, and you do not have that approval. What is your plan B? Is it a legal action against this entity? Is that what the plan B is?
We're working right now to resolve all the issue with Chung Pak.
That's not an answer. I want to know what your plan B is if you do not get that approval. What are all of these people, including Gramercy, who's going to be paid $150 million? I'm sure they're very anxious to get their trucks in there. What is your plan B if you do not get this approval from this entity? Are you going to take legal action against them? Is that what your plan is?
I will. We will defer that to our team to review that question and get back to you.
So you don't know. So everything is in flux right now.
That would be elevated to our different department to review that if we don't come to an agreement, yes.
Well, you can understand how disappointing that is. We're here in February 2022. I don't know why you started this process so late. Charlie has been accessible all this time, and he has already expressed that he's met with you once in all this time.
Well, we've met with Charlie quite a few times, but we did meet with him.
That's not the information that I'm getting. I'm sorry.
We have done several site visits at Chung Pak during the past 6 months, so we could survey the building and understand the building and review all the possible impacts.
Well, that's very different than actually meeting the leadership and getting the approval. But I visited a lot of places in New York. Doesn't mean a thing. So you're in flux. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know when you're going to get the approval. The entire project hinges on this. So just to be clear, you cannot move forward unless you have access to that building to start protecting it, which would enable those people in the building who have to live there.
So I'd like to note that Nora Daniel from the mayor's office has raised her hand to help address the first point.
Tammy, you're on mute.
Tammy, you're on mute.
We need Jan's question answered in some manner. Otherwise, we're just going back and forth. So if the mayor's office can answer it, that would be delightful. Because we also have 5 other people who would like to ask questions, and we have environmental stuff that we need to go through. And it is 8:32.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is Nora Daniel from the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice. So the decision to move folks over was a necessary one that had to be made in order to begin the work at the site. The decision was made jointly between the Department of Correction, Mokje, and City Hall partners as well. And so that's how the decisions are made. Thanks.
And can you answer Jan Lee's question of what the plan B is if Chung Pak does not sign the contract?
Hello? That is a legal question, and I know you don't want to hear that we will get back to you, but I think we'll have to circle back with the team and get back to you. I think Anil has tried to answer that to the best of his ability, and we'll just have to get back to you.
I think you can understand the concern, though. It's an access agreement, and if the agreement is not made, then overriding the community when the promises were made is a very strong concern based on our experience thus far with the prior administration. John, and then Nora, and then
Nora has said that she is unable to unmute. She was muted again.
we will. Nora, you are unmuted.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to back up what was said before. We don't have any indication at this moment that we won't be able to get this particular agreement, as far as I understand. So we're moving forward as needed. Thank you.
Nora, should you be on the panelist side with the rest of everybody else? Are you part of their team?
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay, we will move you over. John, you are up next.
Hi, how are you? Thank you very much. I want to thank my fellow citizens from the community. I want to thank the community board. I really appreciate the calmness with which we're going through this. Please, in the future, don't refer to this site being ULURPed when you didn't ULURP this site. You ULURPed a different place. I would also like to inform everybody that Con Edison did show up. They showed up at 3 o'clock in the morning and were very noisily doing the work that was supposed to be done on the weekend at 3 o'clock in the morning when we were trying to edit and do audio work in our facility. May I ask 3 questions? 1, why hasn't our building ever been studied? We've been told by our consulting engineers that this particular project will collapse our building. The last time anything like this was done on a much smaller scale, half of our foundation collapsed. We have 2 sides of the building with wood pilings. You pull the water table down, our building's going down. You never have shown up to our building. We've asked at every single meeting that you guys come by. Nobody's come by. Another question. When you begin the dismantling, is that it? Is there any remantling, or is this the beginning of the end and this is the road from which we can never come back to anything? So once you start the dismantling, is there any alternative to that? The other thing is, why are you requiring the artists whose work you're trying to preserve to sign non-disclosure agreements in order to be able to talk with you, for you to share your plan with them? If this is transparency, can you explain what type of transparency is that? And sorry, this is the 4th question. How in the world can we understand what you're doing when for 4 years you've been talking about the colors of the doors, the colors of the pylons, and now 2 weeks before the bulldozers come, you're starting for the first time to share some facts with us? Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, John.
Tammy, I might need some help just like reiterating through those questions. Could we start back with the first one?
Sure. So the first one is when, for as long as we've been able to interchange with you, we've been asking for somebody to come by and study the impact upon the closest landmark to the site, a landmark that is under fragile circumstances and nobody has ever come by, and the demolition is starting in 2 weeks. So that's the first question.
Okay, thank you very much for repeating that. Anil or Rich, could you speak to the building assessments and the process that we're going through with that?
John, what address is your building?
This is 87 Lafayette Street. It's the landmark firehouse that's 96 feet away from the site. If you count the Sally Port, it actually might be within the 90 feet. It's pretty close to the 90 feet that you should study as the first concentric circle, but there's another part of the law that indicates that we're within the area that's supposed to be studied before you undertake any serious activities, and you haven't come by.
Okay, I have your address. I will, when we consult with the vibration and noise monitoring company that we have brought on board, we will address it then.
Okay, I've talked to Mr. Rutledge and they've explained to me the imminent danger of our building is really, really serious.
Anil, you're muted.
Is there a possibility that you would not be doing dismantling and anything until those studies are done?
We are reaching out to the neighboring buildings in the next month to come do all the photographic and documentations and studies of the neighboring buildings.
And will that include John's building?
I just wrote it down and I will be meeting with our team to find out.
it would.
I think the answer is the community supports John's building. It is one of the closest historic buildings, and I would hate to hear, "Oh, I'm sorry, it's 1 foot past the line," if you get what I mean.
Yes, and same as when I described the park situation. The monitors that are at the perimeter of the job site monitor everything beyond that. So if there is a vibration at the perimeter of the job site, it is in fact his building is further. So I will evaluate it and we will get back to you.
John, what are the other 2 questions that you had?
The other question is, once you dismantle, is that mean game over? Because if the building is coming down, there's no road back. If all of a sudden the mayor says, we got to stop this. What happens once the dismantling starts? I'm sorry.
So that's a question I think Nora or if someone else from the mayor's office can respond to that. I don't think the technical team is answering the hypotheticals.
Well, no, it's actually an engineering question, because we all are worried that because of the rush to dismantle, which everybody on this presentation team seems committed to, when everybody in the community is cautioning against, and we're asking just tap the brake because you've only given us this data 2 weeks before the bulldozer is supposed to come. Once the bulldozers hit that, that's it. It's over. Is that correct?
So again, the construction team, we are proceeding unless we hear otherwise. We would certainly make sure that the site is safe. But again, as far as what that means for if there's a policy change midway through, I think we need to direct that question to the mayor's office.
I'm not asking policy. Please allow me to ask a question one more time. From an engineering point of view, once the dismantling starts, can you put the building back together again, or you have to proceed to the hole in the ground?
Thank you for clarifying. And Neil, would you like to?
Once we start taking the building down, it all depends on what, I mean, again, this is a hypothetical question if we were going to pause the dismantlement.
It's not hypothetical to us in the neighborhood.
But the building is going to be dismantled floor by floor, top down.
But what he's asking is, they take the top floor off, and then there's a decision to pause the project. From an engineering standpoint, does the entire building need to be taken down? Does the continuation of dismantle need to happen, or would it pause for renovations at that point? Did I get that right, John?
Yes, I would say so, because it is a classic, pardon me associating you with evil developers, but it's classic evil developer tactic to get the bulldozer in, because then there's the project has to proceed. And this is what this to us who don't really understand engineering. That's why I'm asking this of you. Is this basically then, even if it's floor to floor, the continuation of the dismantling? Does that mean that rain is coming in, and you're not going to basically take down the top floor, save the stuff, because you're not going to save the artwork either, and then put it back up if somebody says, you know, this is not a good idea?
There are too many factors in play.
So I'm sorry, in 2 weeks, basically, the door slams shut on any consideration of any alternatives.
I would add that there is too much factor with this question involved in this building, because basically we have to decouple the building before we could even start dismantlement. So there will be quite a prep work that needs to be done in advance of the dismantlement.
So
I don't think
what would be helpful to us is if we knew that you were only going to put a fence up around there, and you were going to walk around the site for some reasonable period of time to allow all these other questions that are swirling around. I think we would relax a little bit, but it doesn't seem like that is what's happening. It seems like, bam, sorry.
John, I think your question.
Yeah, I've been pressing it. So I think everybody in the community hears this answer, and the answer is the bulldozers come, it's over.
Unless the mayor's office says something different.
Yep. Okay. Why were the artists
Don?
asked to sign? Yeah, NDAs for the artists was another question.
I'm sorry, would you mind repeating that?
Why were the artists required to sign NDAs?
Hi, Lauren. This is Dora Blunt from DDC.
Thank you, Dora.
I'm the public art manager at DDC. We've been in touch with the artists who are living for the past year on this project. We've had multiple meetings with both artists, and the meeting that you're talking about was a private meeting. We made people available who are involved in the procurement of the new facility attend that meeting, and therefore it was a confidential meeting. That the NDAs, we asked everyone who attended the meeting signed an NDA, not just the artists, and that was strictly limited to that one meeting.
I've talked with the artists, and I can't speak for all of them, and I don't want to disclose who I spoke with, but that wasn't what they thought, and it was not well explained to them. All they knew was they were being muzzled.
No, sorry.
Sorry,
That's
what I heard.
Okay, so John, thank you. Those are your three questions. I'm going to put you back.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Laura Starr.
Hi, thank you, Tammy. Thank you, everybody. So I'm really interested in the geotechnical report, the section that you showed with the peat and the groundwater, having lived in a similar environment at the South Street Seaport when the Rouse Company was building their development, and knowing they spent literally years driving piles because the piles just like went through the peat. It's like just gook, and like that went on for a long time. And then when they finally got deeper, like my building shook. And I'm just, and what they were constructing there was a 3-story building, and you're talking about a skyscraper. So I'm really curious about the whole foundation process, like how deep the foundation has to go to support the skyscraper, how long you think you'll be dewatering for. When you dewater, where's the water going to go? Is it even feasible with this underground condition to build such a building? I mean, what is the anticipated kind of area of influence of the vibrations, and also the drawdown, like when you dewater and draw down the groundwater, like what is the kind of radius of impact of that? So I have a lot of just technical questions about the underground situation and the construction of such a big building.
So Laura, again, I mean, I'll give Anil a chance if you think you can answer some of these questions, but essentially I think a lot of these are questions that will need to be directed to the team responsible for actually constructing the new facility. As I understand it, you're asking questions about the construction process for the new facility in terms of how deep the foundation needs to go and what the pile driving process is going to be like. And again, we will have that team onboarded in 2023. We will be bringing them back to this community to answer a lot of these questions.
Right. Okay. So sorry to interrupt, but to the previous speaker, whose name I think is John, it's unfair to the community to start dismantling this building and start an irreversible process when you don't know if what is being proposed in its size and construction strategy is even feasible. And that's really profoundly disturbing. Like profoundly, it's just not the way to do things. So I mean, I understand they're going to be brought on later, but I think in fairness to the community, we at least need to hear from a structural engineer and a geotechnical consultant about the reality of building this building, the dewatering, all of these things, because, and we all know that the highest risk in any construction project is what's underground. And there's probably no worse underground place in Manhattan than near Canal Street.
Okay, I understand. I don't know, Anil or Nina, if this is something you can speak to with regard to feasibility. I believe we have to wait until we have the design build team on board to address some of these specific technical questions about the construction of the new facility.
So I think that's fine, but then the new team should be on board right now, and they shouldn't undo a stone of that building, metaphorically speaking, until they've done this study. Period. They're doing things backwards, and it's really not fair.
I could just add that during the dismantlement, there will be dewatering under the Gramercy contract as well. So we do have dewatering in the Gramercy contract.
And where's that water
provision.
when you dewater? You're dewatering to where? And how much dewater? And what are we talking about?
The amount of dewatering will not exceed the current discharge that they currently have in the building. I know we have met with DEP and we're working out the discharge line with DEP currently. Rich, you want to add anything to the dewatering on your contract?
So the building currently has a dewatering system built within it to maintain the levels of water below the basement. That system is going to be maintained throughout the dismantlement process until backfill levels it back off again.
Thanks, Tammy. Thanks, everybody.
Laura, any other questions as far as that? Okay. Rosa Chang, and then back to Alice.
Thank you so much. So I think Laura brought up a really amazing point about the whole dewatering issue, and it is called Canal Street for a reason. So my concern is that with the dewatering, well, two concerns. Number one, with the dewatering means that, compacting of the soil and what the effect is on the neighboring buildings. So I guess the question from that is, have you done pre-construction surveys of all of the neighboring properties and the individual apartments and everything that is, within a certain radius of this property to ensure that you have a record of the state of the properties before you start doing work, and then any damage resulting from the work that you do? And if you have done those, have they been shared with the actual property owners? Because you shouldn't be doing anything until you have a pre-construction survey done, like period, especially given everything that we keep hearing at every single one of these meetings. Number two, regarding the dewatering, the other concern is that if you stop dewatering after you've completed the deconstruction part of the project, well, if they are continuously dewatering now, then why would you stop dewatering when you've demolished, right? Because otherwise then that implies that the water would continue to build, which would again affect the neighboring properties. And I'm sorry, but I'm just going to go through these all quickly because I don't want to go back and forth. In terms of the air monitoring, what heights are the air monitors located at? Because I do believe that there is a concern of airflow at varying heights, and that stuff is going to be traveling, not necessarily at person height, but possibly like a few floors above and then settling down. And also then, what is your notification system to the community so that they have the ability to react and make a decision regarding their own health and safety, especially in the park directly across the street? Because maybe you don't think it's a big deal, but hell, maybe if I have a kid and I'm in the park, I do think it's a big deal and I choose not to be there. But before that, I need to know. And I know that your notification system reports to you, but I'm wondering, where's the notification system to the community in real time so that they can make those decisions about safety for themselves, right? That, to me, that's absolutely essential. And then the other thing I wanted to know was, what happens when you come across archaeologically significant items? Because your own report noticed that there were potential for archaeological items to be found. I lived in Rome, and in Rome, the reason why they have like barely any subway system is because they keep coming across shit when they start digging. So, excuse my language, sorry. So let's say you come across something. What happens then? How does that affect your workflow? Do you come at a full stop?
Rosa, let's let them answer in order. You've raised like 4 questions. Let's let them get to them. Okay.
Okay, but then I need to finish.
Yep, you do. Let's let them start, because that may hopefully get us where we need to go.
We do start to lose track after a minute, so let us address a few of them while they're fresh in our brain. So, Rich, I think the first couple, for you were about the monitoring program, and then Anil, if you could speak to the archaeological study, I think that would be helpful.
So for the monitoring, we are developing the plan, right? The plan will address monitors throughout the perimeter of the site and on the neighboring properties. Those alerts relay back to us in real time at levels well below the impact level to the community. It gives us levels of concern, right? So if there is a slight pickup of anything, we get a notifier of that. That slight pickup is well below any background that exists in the neighborhood, but it keeps us abreast of what's going on so we can continue to address and keep mitigating everything. In terms of going to the properties for inspections, we are planning over the course of the next month.
Just for the air monitoring though, like at what height?
We are developing that plan. The monitoring company, we are finalizing our contract with them, and they are going to be coming out. The first step is to assess the neighboring properties, as you asked me about. We are going to be, through the next month, coordinating with the CCL to visit the surrounding buildings to do the assessments that you requested. And through that assessment, we'll find out the best and most logical places to put these devices to give you the comfort and feedback that we need for the project.
That should be dealt not just, you know, in consultation with the neighborhood, but like actually including the neighborhood's feedback. And specifically the neighbors that have expressed specific interest in having a monitoring location in or around their vicinity. Please. Okay, so then next
That's not where I was going, Rosa. You beat me to the punch. I was like, what? And the other question, obviously, for you, kind sir, who's talking about all of this, Richard, is we'd want to know what we have some experience with this on the east side, and we really do want to know so all the neighbors can feel comfortable-ish, if it happens, that their concerns were listened to and how they are addressed through the monitoring program. That's a really important part of the community engagement that I think you may not be within the contract that you've signed, but it should be within the community engagement. Much to Rosa's saying, to explain to the community and come back to the community why this is here, how it addresses the questions that have been raised, and if the monitoring program needs community input from that, walk the community, listen to the recordings that we have, and hear the things that have been said. Rosa, what are the other questions?
Well, actually, I think Richard was going to go on to question number 2.
What was, I've lost track of which question number 2?
Pre-construction surveys.
Yes, we're going to be starting to do them next month. CCL office will be reaching out to the neighboring properties for access in order for us to come in and do those surveys.
Okay, but if the pre-construction surveys haven't been done yet and you're going to start demolition in 2 weeks, then the pre-construction surveys are essentially void because
we
they
are not
do
starting
not
dismantlement in 2 weeks.
When are you starting dismantlement?
June.
Okay, then what's the work that's starting in 2 weeks? Why are we all talking about 2 weeks if it's not happening until June?
The construction fence is going up in 2 weeks. Art salvage will be starting up in about 2 weeks. And once the fence is completed, we are doing interior work inside the courthouse for make-ready spaces. And we are going to be starting the Sally Port, none of which is dismantlement.
Okay, is any of it going to be affecting, let's say, the dewatering or any site conditions that may cause any disruption to neighboring property?
So regarding the dewatering, I think the question was, would dewatering would stop? Dewatering will never stop. It will be continuous throughout both the project, the dismantlement and the new construction.
Okay, but is any site work going to be happening that would be disruptive to any of the properties adjacent?
Within the next 2 weeks, no.
Okay, before the pre-construction surveys are done, and will all of the pre-construction surveys be shared with the relevant owners of the properties?
Yes, they will be a part of the process.
Okay, and let me think. Sorry, now I have to go through my own frenzied thinking. Archaeologically significant findings?
So none of that, I'll let Anil take that one.
Yeah, so under the dismantle contract, we have very limited excavation within the scope of work. So there will be archaeological monitoring and surveying for the limited excavation for the oil tank and any utility trenches. However, during the new facility contract, there will be a phase 1B study conducted, and based on that finding and LPC consultation, we would have an allowance in the contract for a phase 2 and 3 if needed.
Okay. And do we know what the status is of the underground storage tank, whether it's in good condition?
We are doing the plan for the removal now.
Okay, but you don't know
Of its
what
existence, and
whether.
we are getting ready to do the plan for the removal.
Okay, so we don't
But
know
at
if
this,
it's intact yet.
well, we believe it is intact because there is no signage of leakage based on our geotech result, which was done very close proximity to the old tank. So we're not anticipating any issue at this point.
Okay, and what's
It is
the emergency notification protocol if the air monitors do show elevated signs of something not good to the community?
We will, Rich, you want to take it?
Yes. So if there is a alert level that causes us to stop work, we will stop work. We'll find out the location of the work, what would have triggered that response, and we'll work with the CCL office to then go reevaluate any building or in the vicinity of that monitor what may or may not have occurred.
Okay, that's great for you guys, but for like the community at large, like say I'm playing in the playground with my kid and my parents are beside me and they're elderly, what does that do for me?
So
to be able to decide on my own whether or not I want to be there because it's not a great situation.
So we won't, unless a vibration monitor goes off in a building, that is the building that we will go check and determine what had occurred. Right, so we don't, I can't speak hypothetically what type of event you're expecting, but the quarterly reports will explain every alert level that occurred and what it was.
Again, per Tammy's previous point, a quarterly report is not going to be that helpful if I'm concerned about my own health and safety in the immediate time that something is happening. And so there should be some sort of a notification system so that, you know, human beings have the choice of deciding whether or not the air that they're breathing is something that they want to be breathing. Right? Vibration is something else. Like if there's going to be a failure of the building structure, that's like obviously a huge issue. And possible, which is concerning. But also you, again, are right next to one of the most heavily utilized parks in the city. So please be aware of the risk here to the people that live and work here. On one of your Sallyport site plans, I noticed that you're actually extending past the property line with the Sallyport. Is that allowed?
So the plans for the Sallyport are going in through all of the agencies for the approvals.
But is it allowed for that to take
Alice,
over public property?
Rosa, I've got to let other people also
Oh,
ask.
okay, then, okay, one last thing, sorry, one last thing.
It's okay.
Okay, our new mayor, Eric Adams, quoted Desmond Tutu and said, there comes a point where we need to stop just pulling people out of the river. We need to go upstream and find out why they're falling in. And this and all jails are frankly pulling people out of the river. So I hope that we as a city and that Mayor Adams as the mayor who actually said this right in front of me in real life, I hope that we really consider stopping this insanity here and actually retrofitting the buildings that are existing and spending the savings from this work on actually stopping people from falling into the river. And I'm going to end there.
Thank you. Jason, you're next. You had your hand up. You have not spoken.
Yeah, actually, separate question topic. Are we going to continue on with our executive committee after this matter too, to the other?
We have one more person to speak. It's Alice, and hopefully she can be succinct, and then we will be done by 9:15. I promise.
No, but we don't have other open items after this? I'm just asking. I'm not trying to rush.
I moved many of them on. We have one or two things. That's it.
Okay, sorry. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Alice, you are last calls.
Oh, okay. So either we're obviously significant averse. Thanks, Rosa. That was very poetic and incredibly good. And Laura, thanks, because those were some of the questions I had. So under significant adverse impacts in your FEIS or in the FEIS, historical cultural resources, are identified. And so the demolition of 125 White Street constitutes a significant direct adverse impact, as stated in the EIS, on the criminal courts building. And it requires that you all, in consultation with LPC, take appropriate measures to mitigate the adverse impact. So I'd like to know what measures these are.
All right, and Anil, are you able to address this question?
Rich, you still on, or you? Okay. So under the Gramercy contract, there is
a better understanding of the question.
I'm not understanding. I couldn't hear you. Sorry.
I think would you mind repeating the question?
The EIS, the environmental impact statement, states that the demolition of 125 Wright Street would constitute a significant direct adverse impact on the criminal courts building, which is, as you know, a state and national potential registered landmark by the New York City Landmarks Preservation Society. So it requires that you, the applicant, develop in consultation with the Landmarks Preservation Commission measures to partially mitigate the adverse impact that bringing the demolition will take. So I'm just asking what those mitigation measures are.
So I can answer part of that, and maybe I'll leave Anil or Rich want to answer that. We have met with the LPC on a number of occasions and presented them, and specifically, we've been looking at the artwork, we've been looking at any of the impacts and getting their feedback. So we have been working directly with the LPC.
I'm just asking what those mitigation measures are. I mean, what are we talking about in terms of assurance during demolition that the criminal courts building, what's left of it once its fourth tower is taken off, how that is going to be addressed? I mean, is there a study, a plan? What sort of assurance outside of meeting with them do you have? Is there a plan that is being given over to Gramercy that they're following, or how is it being done?
Gramercy will be developing a construction protection plan and a historic survey of the buildings. In addition, the pre-construction survey will be done.
Okay, and when could the community get a copy of the pre-construction survey?
Rich, you want to, I mean, we just, as Rich just mentioned, we have to have, that's something going to be scheduled shortly. And Rich, you want to give a timeline on that?
Yeah, my plan is to reach out to all of the neighboring properties, which is inclusive of the courthouse, to do the pre-construction surveys of those buildings. In terms of handing it over, I hand it to the DDC, and then from there, I guess it's a request from you to them.
I just guess I'm asking a sort of estimate on the timing. Obviously, you have a schedule for this project. So I'm just asking when Gramercy is intending to get that, more or less when that would be completed, given
Month of March.
Month of March, it would be, okay. So I'm hoping that the community board can see that, of course. So I have a bunch of questions. I'm trying to cut it short here, but I'm just curious about the borings on the site. There were supposed to be, I think, in one of the reports, I know, at least 34 borings were planned originally for the site, but AECOM and DDC elected to reduce the number of borings. And this included also their election not to extend the borings past the depths of hand clearing at 6 feet. Why is that?
Anthony, you want to take this?
Yeah, yeah, I guess
I can also just say, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
What happened at that time was happening during COVID, so they shut down the project, they restarted the project, and whoever is the design builder will complete the drilling of the borings to meet the Department of Building Codes requirements for borings every so many square feet.
Well,
also
it's purely these were purely geotechnical borings. They weren't environmental.
I'm not, I don't,
They were just to determine the foundation types, the soil conditions.
but
They
that's
wanted to
rather
get samples
critical
from,
information. I mean, you had 34 and how many ultimately were done?
there was a total of 23.
Well, that's quite a bit less. So you're saying that it's now the design build team that will take over the rest of the borings?
If they require additional borings by the Department of Buildings. There's a requirement by building code, how many borings you need per square foot of building.
And
And that
and-
reflects whether it's, pile foundation or spread footings. If it's a pile foundation, you need more borings, which this will be a pile foundation.
Right, but this was clearly identified as being a pile foundation, and also the groundwater depth was not performed with most of the boardings. So how will
Well,
that?
they did monitoring wells throughout the building, so they got a profile of the groundwater. I mean, the groundwater, if you look at, there's a, in
The
the
borings
report.
themselves didn't have those, I thought were not.
Well, no, because what they do when they drill a normal boring is they use what they call driller's mud. So when they use a driller's mud, it doesn't give you an accurate water reading. So what they do is they put a monitoring well in later on, and they typically take readings, what they call seasonal readings, because the water fluctuates. So here they put in, I believe it was 6 monitoring wells. So they got a good, a good idea of the profile of groundwater on the site. I mean, that's what we typically do on any project. We don't do monitoring wells in every boring. It's
I guess what
typically,
I'm trying to get at is it seems like it's incomplete, which is what you're saying, and that it might have to have additional borings. And it seems like that it just seemed like looking at those plans and then reading this, it just seemed like there were very few. And then am I right in, that in understanding that yes, caisson piles or drilled shafts are absolutely a requirement here for the new building, which Laura well points out is under, in one of the most vulnerable areas in New York, which besides Canal Street and of course Collect Pond. And it's a minimum of 17 feet down below the soft rock. Is that not correct? So it's a minimum of that, right?
yeah, I mean, it goes down to 120. It could be 30 feet into rock.
Mm-hmm. So how many feet down, sort of as an estimate, would any pile go, do you think?
If it depends on the size and diameter of the pile. Depends on the foundation size, how many piles you have within each foundation group. So it could vary. I mean, it's not easy enough to say, whether it's, 10 feet in rock, 15 feet in rock. It all depends. It all depends on the loads that are the loads that are at each foundation location.
Is the DDC assured that in the demolition of this, that something that a large building at 30 stories can in fact, without question, be built at this site?
You're talking about foundation wise?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, you could build.
And how is the proximity of the subway, which I understand is 6 feet away from the western property line, accounted for in the planning of the excavation or demolition, if at all?
The subway tunnel will be monitored during the dismantlement of the building. Under the new facility contract, there will also be additional monitoring and shoring as needed based on the design of the new building.
So who monitors that? Is that DOT or you?
Now, Gramercy will be providing a consultant, and they will be also monitoring the subway tunnel during the dismantlement, similar to the adjacent properties.
And will TRC, I guess it were tectonic engineering consultants, will they be reviewing the project plans and specifications prior to the construction? I mean, are they still going to be the group that's working on this?
So the preliminary report that you're looking at were prepared in an effort to assist the design builder in bidding the project. As I mentioned earlier, both design builder are doing their own site validation and performing additional testing. For example, the facility design builder will be doing additional borings to verify existing condition prior to designing the building.
So I would assume that in our quest for, a greater community engagement, all of these sorts of borings and will be notified of all of this. And just a couple more questions. When will the supplemental phase 1A archaeological testing study be done? Approximately.
Once we have the new facility design builder on board.
Okay. And then just, I know the community board asked for several items, and I'm just going to repeat them here and hope that, you can answer this or at least provide them. And I think most of these, just confirm if we have to FOIL for them, but one would be the demolitions plans.
So, Rich, you want to take this? The demolition plan is currently being developed. So it's not, Rich, you want to?
Yes, that's currently under development. We are doing our probes to determine all the steel sizes, determine the types of machinery that we're utilizing, type of cranes that we're utilizing. Once that's finalized, it goes to DOB for permitting. And once permitted, I believe that you're able to receive them from the appropriate channels. I don't know what those are because that lands on the DDC, but the plans, once they're approved with the DOB, I'm assuming are available one way or the other.
Yes, I have to wait until so you haven't submitted you have not completed the demolition plans for this project.
No, they're still under development.
I see. Okay, so they certainly haven't been submitted.
Alice, we did provide a list of the documents that you will need to be foiling for.
It seems like all of them, if I'm not mistaken. I just wasn't sure, like the fire prevention and evacuation plan that somebody mentioned. Is that something we're going to be getting, or do we have to?
There's an evacuation plan that is part of the health and safety plan. And I believe that was in the list of that was the one that we said we could provide without the FOIL process.
Okay, so last question is, how long will it take us to get these plans that we have in that long list from FOIL? What do you think? Do you have any idea of how long we'd have to wait for that?
I do not. That is part of DDC's legal process.
Okie dokie. Thanks, Tammy. Thank you all. Appreciate the information.
Thank you all for coming. I do want to close out. It's 9:16. It's been a very long meeting. I appreciate your patience. I appreciate the diligence in answering all the questions that we have. There, I know, are more environmental questions because there was a lot of concern about the historical potential of what would be found underneath. And I did see that in one of your slides. So if we have more questions, we will again collate them and send them to you, and appreciate the corralling of everyone here to come and answer all these questions and understand how sensitive the neighborhood is, environmentally and structurally, and as it will relate to the new building that comes. So thank you very much. And for the representative from the mayor's office, we welcome you to have a more robust dialogue with the community board. All righty.
Thank you all. Thank you again for hosting us at this committee tonight, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, for CB1 people, we are not going to go through committee reports. If you have something that you think is going to light your hair on fire at the full board, can you please just email me and Lucian and the office, Diana, whomever, and we will get it organized. So I believe Betty's the first committee up. I don't know who's ending yet, and that's where I'm going to leave all of it for tonight. All right. Thank you so much. It's 9:17. If you have any questions, I'll hang on just to ask, but otherwise, meeting adjourned.
Tammy, can we just have Lucy do a quick rundown of the upcoming elections related stuff?
Yeah, if not, I could have her do it at the full board either way.
Whatever you guys want. I mean, short version, you need to request for volunteers for the nominating committee at the February meeting, and then I can proceed with that if you want later on, but that's the short version because of the time. Is that okay, or you want further details?
I think we have a nominating committee. I'll make that announcement in February. We will recruit them. They will start in March.
Yeah, if there are more than 6, then you would have to have an election, so just be cautious of that.
I'd be grateful if we had more than 6. I highly doubt it.
So everyone, anyone with questions, please email Lucy, CC me, but Lucy is our
election
our
maven,
keeper of the fire in terms of elections. So we look to her for answers on all this.
All righty. On that note, Lucy, gosh, thank you. And we will put out a reminder at the full board as well.
I'll draft something up and send it to you tomorrow. Good night.
Yeah,
Thank
good
you.
night.
Good night. Good night, office team. Good night, everybody. Thank you very much for your
Thank you.
time.
Thanks
tonight.
for a really good meeting. This was long, but it was really good.
It was very good. Thank you so much, everybody.
Yeah, really, really good engagement. Thank you. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you.
But
Good night.
can I ask something though?
Sure, Rosa.
I'm sorry. I don't know if I'm just dumb or what, but I still don't understand. If the mayor has said he's against it, and you know, our community, our city council member has said he's against it. If down the line everybody's saying they're, I'm very confused. Can someone explain this to me?
Welcome.
I don't understand.
Wait. Can I say? Because they can. I mean, there's really is what they don't have.
But who's the they? I mean, theoretically, it was the previous administration,
I
right?
agree with you, Rosa.
That's the argument we're trying to propose here. And the more that you underline the insanity, if you will, of it, the better. I mean, you're right. I mean, and everyone sees it that way, but it keeps rolling along.
But it's so clear. That's why they're rushing through the demolition before they haven't even gotten to the next. They don't even have a design yet. It's because
if the building gets rushed down,
then they have to do
and
something.
everyone can say that they were against it, but it came down because the plans were in motion. And then they're all in charge of what goes there instead.
And they all are. It's like job security. It's they're built whatever.
Listen, there's no doubt we want criminal justice reform. We want better living environments and working environments for everybody. But there's so many things that they have not discussed with the community. There's so many opportunities. I don't care that there's a state building across the street. Are you trying to tell me that there's not another building in the unbelievable amounts of open office space within the legally required several blocks to do other things and spread economic diversity into the neighborhoods? So that maybe more than one building has a boon, that we can actually have people who would walk past other restaurants in Chinatown and eat in our neighborhoods, walk up Walker Street, eat in the neighborhoods, participate.
How about oh my God, do something on Park Row.
Hey everyone, we still have a quorum of people, so I'm just leaving the recording on.
Oh,
thank you. Sorry about that.
Yeah,
Okay.
Can I ask one more question? I'm sorry.
Sure. Rosa, just know that I missed my kid's celebration tonight, so I'd like to go tuck him in. So hurry up.
Okay, no, okay. So then, would the community board consider supporting Chung Pak and like fighting the access agreement for the protection? Because by code, they need to actually they, as in the city, whoever's doing the construction, actually needs to provide protection to neighboring properties. They cannot start any work without that protection in place. But it's a bizarre little thing that there's like a legal loophole in that they don't necessarily state that you can force protection on your neighbors. So without that protection in place, they cannot start work.
What is that protection that you're talking about?
They need to have physical protection.
They need to have a
along
signed access
neighboring
agreement.
properties up to a limit of I believe it's like 15 or 20 feet from the property line in case like stuff falls from the building, and so that doesn't crack through the roof and like kill somebody.
That? Like, right? I mean, didn't we hear the community just say they don't want to?
Well, no,
that's mandatory. It's
it's
not
mandatory.
even optional.
So
Start.
hold on, guys. What you heard them say is that it is still being dealt with in legal. It is still being discussed with Chung Pak, and there is no definite answer yet. I think that is the answer that we got so far. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that it's happening. It doesn't mean that it's not happening. It just means that there's no definite answer.
Right, but then the city is forced to essentially sue for access to protect the neighboring property, which they will likely eventually win because that's a reasonable request. But I mean, it's theoretically like a delay tactic, right?
I'm not going to get into the legal ramifications of what goes on and what is not going to go on with that, and I don't think the office needs to check where we can be as a community board, because we are not going to be a
Okay, understood.
on a legal case.
I just literally haven't heard a single person speak in any of these various meetings that I've sat in on for the last few months in support of this project.
There's
It's
nobody.
been unanimously against.
For years, Rosa, since
Oh, okay.
2019.
I'm joining the party late. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I mean, it's just been so consistent. Just look at the 3 resolutions we wrote, and that'll be a 15-minute, understanding of where the community
Oh my
always
God,
sat.
yes.
And I'll also send you the thing I was referring to, Elizabeth Glazer, who was the architect behind the entire Close Rikers campaign. She herself, only 2 months ago, comes out saying the very plan she was advocating for needs some tweaks. It's not right. And this is a very powerful piece that no one's really aware of, but I'll send it around to everyone, but it's extraordinary. And she calls for just the obvious, like they closed down 2 state jails that exist in our city, one in Harlem and one in Chelsea. And there's 2 buildings that
And there's
have
2
beds
buildings that are sitting there right
sitting
now.
there that are
empty.
completely useful.
Yes. I mean, fix
So-
them up. Use some of the money, fix them up if they need them.
So there are a lot of solutions here, but I'm so delighted at the meeting and all the participation and the fact, Rosa, that you actually read that. Yes, it's like go to the head of the class.
Yep.
During the
Oh my
what?
God.
So, but the one thing I'm going to caution to remember is that you're yelling at people who aren't making the decisions that we're lamenting.
Yes.
Right. And the deep dive that we asked them to do, we got some of the questions in, but there was a bucket of time that I felt bad for them as representatives of, they have nothing to do with it.
But Tammy, this was the only time in the since ULURP, that the community has really had in a moment to have this exchange. Do you realize we've never had this before? This is
because all they ever sent us was Andrew Kunks.
Okay,
Wouldn't
so
answer anything.
So it was
So it
thank
had to
goodness that all
happen.
sorts of people did speak up, and you're right. The only thing you can do is write the mayor. Yes, we should write the mayor and let him know and get out there and write the mayor. That's all you can do. You're right.
And that was my point, is that the best that we can do at this point is the mayor. And he is the key to the castle.
And putting pressure on our electeds, like our borough president and like our state reps. I mean, people should speak up about it.
They should speak up about
Being
it.
silent, and that's the
Can I
worst.
also add that I'm glad we're here because at the last meeting when they came, I will tell you that once Gramercy or the construction manager was brought on, I'm sorry, I have to tell you, they're serious pros. They've got everything covered. Essentially, it just gave me the heebie-jeebies that this is just being moved forward in spite of all of us. And these guys are seriously understanding what is involved. I mean, we either stop this politically or these guys will take it down. They're just here to execute their contract.
Well,
and
maybe
they know what they're doing.
Yeah, $125 million. You're not kidding.
Yeah, they're gonna push it. Maybe
On that
we
note, peeps, it is now 9:27. Everybody has to go home.
All right, go
Okay,
home.
goodbye. Thank
Bye.
you, Tammy. Thanks all.
Thank
Good
Good night,
you.
everybody.
Love you guys. Bye. Good